Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, and we're so glad you're here. And we do have an amazing guest today. I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. But I just want to mention here a few quick things. Number one, if anyone is interested in joining me to do their own interview, please feel free to reach out. All the ways to connect with me are beneath this video. If anyone is interested in one-on-one peer support, non-clinical, feel free to reach out as well. And we did our deconversion poetry slam this past weekend. It went really, really well. But if anyone is interested in sharing their poetry at some point, we're going to do it again, probably in about 8 weeks. So keep that in mind. Write your poetry and let me know when you're ready, and we'll get you on to share your poetry or song, whatever's in your heart. And all the above is just, we just appreciate so much you all being part of this community. It's been amazing to see the growth. And I just want to mention too that we're growing. This channel is growing a lot. Recently, it's been just almost overwhelming. I literally can't keep up with the emails of people saying I'd like to come on and share my story. So thank you to those of you who've been supporting this for a while, and those of you that are just joining. And if anyone does want to actually financially support the channel, all the ways to do that are beneath this video as well. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in our guest. Today we're speaking with Allison Rose. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's my privilege and honor. And I'm just going to give a quick bio and then we'll get started. Allison Rose is a deconstruction coach, and she's host of the podcast called The Recovering Radical. It's for people that are untangling their life after high control religion. Through a grounded body first approach, she helps people release lingering guilt, to rebuild self-trust, and to feel safe again, being fully yourself. Her work blends nervous system tools, honest conversations, and grounded spirituality to support real everyday freedom. You can find her on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Real Allison Rose. I've got all the links beneath this video. And I do just want to mention her YouTube channel is sort of just starting. Please, everyone, take a minute, literally like right now, and go subscribe to her. Her work is there. It's just starting, but let's get her a running start on YouTube, make it grow faster. And also, I've got some links there for connecting with her. If you're interested, she is taking clients. And I think by the end of this, if you watch this video, you'll see why she's an amazing person. But if you are interested in connecting with her and seeing if it's a fit for therapy, feel free to reach out to her there. But Allison, again, great to get to know you here today, together, myself as well as the community. But could you tell us more about yourself and some fun stuff, and then we'll get started with your story.
Yeah, I will. And I want to just take a minute just to be ethical and say that I am not a licensed therapist. I'm not, I don't have a degree in that. What I do is certified life coaching. And then I have other ways that I have educated on tools to use. And I'm very careful about how I approach what I do. So I just always want to make sure I say that if you need clinical trauma, reprocessing memories, you need therapy, find a therapist. And I actually often will work in conjunction with therapists. So I like to be part of the support team. I offer different things and I can explain more about that, but I always like to be extremely upfront about that. I love therapists. I support therapy, and I do not claim whatsoever to be one of them. So yeah, so I'm Allison. I'm a millennial, and I have 3 kids. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas. And there are not many of us who were actually born and raised there, and moved away a couple of years ago. But love Central Texas and the rolling hill country. And some like kind of fun facts about me that used to be unique, but aren't as unique anymore since COVID. I bake like crazy. I make sourdough, and I'm gluten-free, so I can't eat anything that I bake, but I make it and I smell it and I give it to my friends and family. And I also crochet like a ton. And then I'm super into like historical fiction, reading it, watching it, that kind of stuff. I also write music. So you see my guitar back there. I'm terrible at playing the guitar. I'm very mediocre at the piano, but I sing and I'm okay at that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to, when our next poetry slam is, you're welcome to come on if you've got a song or a poem to read or sing. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, that sounded really interesting, actually.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that you probably, I think, would agree based on what I've seen on your Instagram page, just that so much of this stuff, the healing that we talk about, it is in many ways academic and intellectual at first, but it becomes very emotional and psychological. And to me, a lot of that leads to a very poetic mindset, which sometimes comes out in actual poetry as well, or
Yeah.
some kind of artistic way to just feel like you got to find some way to find the words, or whether it's maybe, I guess, other people might paint or do something, but some way to express yourself and just let your true inner light shine. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what with crocheting? What do you crochet, like stuff for yourself or for your kids, or what do you do?
Yeah, both. Mostly for my kids. I make little stuffies, I make dolls, I make blankets, I've made clothes. Well, you can't see it, but I have a really cool blanket over there I made that took me like a year. I just usually get really inspired and I love the textures and the colors. I'm really picky about what I make. Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. I crocheted for years. I don't have time right now, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
used to make a ton of blankets and scarves, and I used to love knitting scarves with the cables that would crisscross.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's I wanna get back to it someday, but life got in the way.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, anyway, well, thank you so much again for being here. We
Yeah.
would love to, eventually talk about what you do with your, with what you do on Instagram and what you do with, your clients, but before we do that, could we just go back to your story? What was it like growing up as a kid? What did you hear about Jesus and the gospel and salvation? And I'll jump in with some questions.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, born and raised in Austin, Texas. So, definitely in the Bible Belt. And what's more popular where I grew up was that non-denom, charismatic Pentecostal type of church that just was more the standard church. But also, it was just understood and expected. You're a Christian, like. Literally, people at the grocery store are going to speak to you as if you are already going to church. And that's the first question anyone asks you when you move to a new area. Where do you go to church? You know? And so there was never a time where I even realized that that wasn't the norm, that wasn't, other people didn't, you know, they weren't born into a Christian worldview. And I was born into a very Christian worldview. I had fairly conservative parents. I was homeschooled for the first several years, then private schooled, then co-op schooled, then private schooled again, public schooled again, homeschooled, public schooled. But I was already trained as a kid to go into any space, academic spaces, and question them. They called it critical thinking, but it was actually to question anything that didn't fit the Christian worldview. So
Yep.
by about 7, I was already thinking that way. If I heard anyone talk, if I knew they were a professor, if they were academic, I was like suspicious because I was told they were trying to take our way of life from us, which like makes my parents sound like they were super serious, but honestly, they weren't. I think it was a product of families and some other things going on, and they were just kind of like going along with it.
Yep.
Um, but I remember at 5 years old, I was like, Mom, I just want to give my life to Jesus. And she's like, okay. We prayed the prayer and I was like, yay, I'm in. And then I was like, I want to get baptized right now. And she's like, no, you have to wait till you're 9. So it was interesting, but I was always looking for like, how can I do the next thing? How can I go further? How can I do more? And so kind of standard Christian as a kid. And then towards middle school, we moved to a new place. And the first thing we did was find a new church. And this church was very charismatic. And I went to a summer camp where it was very spiritual, very crazy. And it was like, oh, like you can be more serious about Jesus than anybody else in your life, than your family, than anybody. And I was like, sign me up, because I was not popular. I was not cool. Nobody liked me. I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the dumbest. Like, just I had nothing else going for me. But when I went to church and youth group, they loved me. They put me up on a pedestal. They were like, you're special. You're gifted. They would say, oh, like you can heal people or you can prophesy or whatever. So I was like, awesome. Like this is something I'm actually good at. And I feel
Mm.
loved and accepted here. So by 14, I was already getting very, very radically indoctrinated with even, pastors or mentors saying like, don't necessarily tell your parents or other people in your life everything that's going on here, because they'll think you're crazy. They'll think you need therapy. They'll think, whatever, because
Wow.
everything was so hyper spiritual. So I am 15. I'm in high school. I am barely sleeping because I'm doing all my advanced classes and I'm doing well at those, but I'm also spending all of my time at church. So sometimes 5 days a week. And I'm driving also to another church because I wanted even more. That was like 45 minutes away. At 15, I wasn't driving. I was actually getting rides with another family not family member, another person who would take me. And then when I could drive, I would drive. So I was driving constantly. I was there like 5 days a week. I would go to all the outreaches. We'd be at malls praying for people. Sometimes we were actually helping and serving, but most of the time we were just trying to proselytize people and get them converted and on our side. And the main way we do that is by healing them or telling them something about their life that we couldn't know. And like
Wow.
sometimes that was like kind of, I don't know, it felt very forced. And like people were like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then be like, oh, time for conversion. But there were, I will say, like, even to this day, I have stories in my journals. I have all my journals back there that really can't be made up, that did happen, that are really crazy with some bizarre, miraculous things I've seen. And then some really bizarre, like things that I knew about people that I can't know about people. And I still don't know what I think about that. We can get into that later, but my views have changed so much. I just don't know what to do with those things. So
Well, that's
yeah,
fascinating. I didn't have those experiences. Almost everything else you said, I completely related to. I was the same way where, at age 5, I gave my life to Christ. By age 8, I was literally saying, I want to go to the deepest, darkest corners of this planet and take the
yeah,
gospel to the lost. My hero was Hudson Taylor, if
yep,
you know that name. And just everything was being on fire for God. I took the injunction to not live in Laodicea very, very seriously. And,
yeah,
God will, spew you out of his mouth. And that was everything. And it
yeah,
almost annoyed, it was a beautiful life, but it annoyed me that the other Christians weren't like, of
yeah,
course, like if you really believe in heaven and hell,
yeah.
then what else could be more important than getting people into heaven?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's so good. And yeah, that was a huge component of it, building in this arrogance that was not only like a believer unbeliever paradox. It was also like we're the better Christians. Like we literally are the only ones who are doing anything about our beliefs, and everyone else is just sitting around. And I heard that constantly from the adults in my church. So
Mm.
yeah, so I'm spending all my time just running myself ragged. Purity culture hits me like a bus. Like, obviously, I'm a normal developing human being, and my sexuality is happening and puberty is happening, and it's getting demonized so badly. I've already been molested at multiple times at this point, and it's kind of the implication of like, it was your fault. Like it was your fault. You shouldn't be smiling. You shouldn't be looking at men. You shouldn't like give anybody any indication that you're a person. Like you just need to be like head down. So that was
Was that
happening.
in the church or just
Yeah.
in life in general?
Yeah, it was in the church. It was majorly like it was weird. I was actually reading one of my journals this morning from when I was 13, and I was reading this book by Shanti Feldman at that time called For Young Women Only.
Yep.
And the notes I have in it are very disturbing because there's such a picture of the cognitive dissonance of purity culture. I was being taught that all sexual abuse will be my fault, that if I have premarital sex, I'm used up and broken. But more than that, it's like my responsibility to make sure it doesn't happen, so much more than any partner I'd be with. And that also, like, guys just can't control themselves. It's about you. And then in the same breath, I'm reading on and it's talking about how fragile guys are, and you have to like really like make sure they feel respected. And even if you're trying to like discourage them from either molesting you or sleeping with you, you have to do it in a way that's respectful. And I just thought that was so disturbing. I was 13 when I wrote those words. I'm looking at my journal right here. I'm like,
That
what
is
the
crazy.
heck?
I remember reading that book as well, and a lot of other books, related to that whole topic. And it is crazy that at the time it seemed like it made so much sense to us, and then you step
Right.
back and think about autonomy and boundaries so differently, and it's like, wow, what again, like the whole thing. What was I stuck in, and
Yeah.
why did I love my captor? But
Yes, why did I that is so it too, because you realize that these like so many of these people, and I don't think the people that I know were trying to do this at all, but they were operating with like narcissistic abuse tendencies. And I don't even think all of them were narcissistic, or most of them were. It was just the model that we had. And yeah, getting into like how many times they made me confess my sexual sins as a kid to an adult man in a closed room, as part of accountability. There's so many weird things that were happening. it was very creepy. So anyway,
Mm.
so all that's happening. I just don't want to be a human. I'm fasting as much as I can. I feel so guilty when I eat food and I enjoy it. I feel bad when I'm having fun. I think all my friends are just terrible people because they're not prioritizing the things that they should be prioritizing. I am convinced the world is about to end. Super end timesy. I was taking a Mike Bickle's Omega course. I was reading Revelation constantly. It's just like every charismatic topic I was like very invested in. There was one day. Wait, go ahead.
Mike Beckles, is that Bethel?
That's IHOP. Sorry. Yeah,
IHOP,
he's the one who's currently under fire and everything. But the end time stuff was very, very, very strong there. And yeah, preparing to get martyred, getting involved in politics as a 15-year-old. It's just insane. Like the stuff I was doing, and absolutely not taking care of my body. So, okay, I'm like trying to organize this. So by 18, my body just gives up totally, like total adrenal fatigue, almost failure. I just can't function anymore. And I've always been a very energetic type A person. And suddenly I can't go to church. I am passing out. My eyes are hurting. Light hurts my eyes. I'm getting headaches constantly. My gut just breaks down. I can't eat anything. And my Healing and Miracles church, of which me and my partner at the time were like the main people. They would take us out of school to go pray for people. We could heal anybody of anything. I'm sick. He can't heal me. Nobody in my church can heal me. So first it's, we're here for you. Then it's like, this is getting old. This is taking a long time. What are you doing wrong? Then it's God wants to teach you something. It was everything. It just kept going and going. And I'm just thinking, this isn't what God has for me. God wants us to be well. And that was a burden because I felt like I was doing something wrong by not being well. So I'm 18 and this continues for the next 9 years. And it gets worse. It gets worse and worse and worse. It travels all over my body. I get into stage 4 chronic fatigue, basically, which is where your body it's not even able to make cortisol anymore. So now you're just flatlining all of the time. You don't even get energy spikes or anything. I have 3 kids in the middle of all of this. And because that was also like my duty. Like I love my kids and I would have chosen to have them, but I did have a little bit of like, I can't let this stop me from who God has made me to be. So I just keep having the kids and we have no money and all this stuff. And kind of at the height of the illness, it was probably 8 years in, I would go to bed every night and just pray that I'd die. It just was like,
Wow.
when I would sleep, the inflammation would get worse. And so my face would hurt so bad. I wouldn't be able to move my hands and I'd have to sleep in a very specific position or things would go numb and get hurt in the middle of the night. But then it got to a point where it didn't matter what position I was sleeping in. I'd just be injured when I woke up. I had like basically arthritis in my hands, my wrists, my elbows, my hips, my knees, my feet. And then I'd wake up every morning and be like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Not to mention my mental health was trash at this point. I had gone through like total religious psychosis for an entire year, convinced demons were attacking me. Then I just went through, I only had 2 modes, depression or anxiety. Depression was when I was tired. Anxiety was when I had some energy. And it was miserable. And yeah.
So basically you're telling us the joy of the Lord was your strength.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And I was just convinced that I needed to do something more. And it would transition from like more religion, more healing work, more Bible verses. And then sometimes it would go into like, I need to find the right healing modality, the right natural path, the right doctor. And none of it worked at all. So I finally gave up. It was really interesting. I gave up and I kind of said, I don't care if I die. But I'm too tired to do anything about that. So I also don't care if I live on like this. And then I said, I might be sinning by just being sick and whatever, but how can I enjoy my life right now? This is around, I want to say it's around COVID too. So the whole world stopped and there wasn't a whole lot of other things I could be doing except sitting at home. And so I remember dragging a chair into my yard and feeling the sun on my face. I was in pain everywhere. I didn't like to feel my body. I I liked to disassociate because that was better than feeling. But I remember thinking, hey, there's like warmth on my face and it doesn't hurt. That's interesting. And that was the first shift for me. And it's very significant. It had to do with all of my theology and all my beliefs and with my body at the same time. Like, this is the one thing that doesn't hurt. And there's nothing really spiritual about it. And I felt kind of guilty about it. Like, I'm enjoying this a little bit. I don't know. Can you relate to the like the spiritual hierarchy? Like, your spirit life is more important than your physical life. Did you get any of that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it was the dichotomy and the dualism was just intense, and I think it certainly got exacerbated with puberty and sexuality concepts.
Yeah.
But it was always like your biggest battles are going to be in your mind,
Yeah.
and yet the biggest outpouring of the temptation is going to be in your body,
Yeah.
and therefore you need to have mastery over your mind to the point that it overpowers your body.
Yeah.
And certainly with intense deprivation and in every way. And
Yep.
it's amazing what that does, though, not just in terms of the dualism, but it also creates a double life. And I talk a lot on this channel about just my experiences in Bible college, but so many conversations with the guys in the pastoral program who were aiming to be pastors. They were going to be young pastors, not just like going out into the world and doing something else and becoming pastors in their 60s. Like, they wanted to become pastors by age like 22, 23, 24.
Yeah.
All of us did. That's what they were grooming us to do. And yet every young men's Bible study with the other pastoral students all got to one simple topic: why aren't we stopping with masturbating? It's just like everything was that topic every single time.
Yeah.
There was no other topic that really mattered.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're serious about God, you will address that issue. And of course, you don't address it. You just apologize to God, and then get faithful to God for a week, and then the next week you come back groveling again. So I'm so sorry, God. But it tears people up, and it hit me so many times that we're living two different lives. And I thought, if those of you on the nomination committee for these pastoral candidates ever got to truly know what we really talk about, you'd be like, you're all not welcome in our churches. And it's like, but they all did become pastors, which means they all had to wear masks, or else they had to basically drive their sexuality toward their, hopefully their spouse. And then eventually, like, that's their spouse's job. Going back to what you were talking about before, it becomes your spouse's job to take care of all that. And it's crazy. Anyway, keep going with your story.
Yeah. Oh, well, that just brings up so many other. Yeah, I have a lot to say on that about marriage and how it primed, like, the way that me and my former partner, how it primed us to think about marriage and how miserable. Like, that's part of also why I got so sick, how miserable we were, because it was my job to, and we agreed on it. It was my job to make sure he wasn't looking at porn and didn't cheat on me. And I had to perform in whatever way. So I'm told nothing. And then I'm told switch on, become a sex toy immediately. And you're sinning if you don't. And of course, I'm chronically ill. So the pain is like unimaginable. And there's like, my body's like, we don't have mental space for that. We're dying right now. But like, I pushed through on that for years. And it destroyed parts of my humanity for a while. It made me hate myself, because it was like, I have to live. In a different way, I had to live a double life of like tear myself into pieces and disassociate from certain parts of them, because I was good. I was a good wife. I did a good job. It was horrible.
Did the pain of all that stuff ever lead you to wonder, not just if it was like a demonic attack, but if you actually weren't even a Christian?
Yes. So there was definitely one point where I got to the very, very bottom of everything. And it was cool because it was partially suffering, but it was also partially logic. And I started to realize the nature of our perceptions of reality, and that everybody can look at the same thing and they can think different things about it. And we're all experiencing something like a blue box in the middle of a room. And everybody could have a different experience. People have different eyes and they see something different. People have different thoughts about it and it means different things to them. And thinking about that made me realize that everything I think really, it can't be proven. There's nothing I think that can be proven. at all. Even the experiences I've had, and I've had incredible experiences over time where I felt very close to God, I can't prove any of those. And so I had a moment of like, the question for me was, am I stupid for wanting to participate with this? That's what I came to. Am I stupid, and am I hurting myself? Am I self-abandoning? And I went on a long wrestling academic journey with that. Like, I asked a lot of questions. I read a lot of theology books. I read a lot of other kinds of books. I thought about the nature of reality. That was the biggest thing, and perception. And eventually I came to an idea that came from, it was I don't know if anybody knows what Landmark is. It's probably a cult, but I got some really interesting things out of the one conference I did go to. I'm
What's it
not like
called again?
it's called Landmark, the forum. I'm not like a super big fan of it or anything, but I took some really interesting things out of it. But they talked about how nothing has inherent meaning because everybody has different perceptions of reality. So there's no way to prove without a shadow of a doubt this means something. And you can take that to mean two things. You can take that in a nihilistic way and think, therefore, I can't have meaning, or I'm going to take something very sad or hard from that. Or you can say nothing has meaning. Therefore, what is the context that's going to grow the most love, the most connection, the most hope for humanity? And that is the way I now approach my life. Like, I'm very comfortable with the fact that I can't prove anything, and I'm okay with that. And I love thinking, okay, my perception is either going to make me a person of love and care and help people around me better and myself, or it could make me shy away and grow smaller and be separate and limited, and harmful. And I also looked at like my context of what I had believed, and I was like, they're telling me this is the most loving thing. I don't think it is. Like, everything I had believed for the first 24 years of my life, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is making me hateful. This is making me arrogant, even though we have different words for it. We call it, we're favored, we're blessed, we know the truth, and we're helping people reveal the truth. And this is just convicting them. We want to correct them because we love them. And I'm like, this is just arrogance. It has not produced good things in my life. It produced 9 years of chronic illness, insane mental health issues. I did not have any real friends because the second I started rethinking things, people were a little nervous. And I was so mean to like people at my school, other people in my communities, just people who weren't at church because they weren't doing the right thing. So I realized that context is not one that I want to continue with in my life. And that was a huge turning point for me.
You mentioned the people weren't nice to you when you started to explain your questions and your thought process on this. How about the inner circle? Were you able to talk like with your parents, or was there anybody that was a safe Christian for you? And how did those go?
Yeah, it was hard. I definitely had a few people in my spaces that were deconstructing, and I didn't even know what that word was, by the way. When it happened to me, I had no idea. And I had been off social media for 6 years, and I moved out to the country and didn't know anyone other than a few people that had gone to my church before. So, I do like to say, like, this happened to me. It was a very personal process. But I knew one person who was very open-minded from my church. And so we had discussed like my changing theology and my different ideas. And that was really supportive. And then just like, luckily, my ex at the time was also processing their own stuff. And so we were able to have some really vibrant conversations about, and we went through it together from 14 on. So we could really discuss what happened, and that was super helpful. And then I masked for everybody else. I masked hard, like to the point I just sent an email last week about how I would just lie. I would just straight up lie about being between churches when I had no intention of going to church ever again, because the little old ladies at the grocery store were asking me about it. I don't even know them, but I was like, I don't want to get into this with them. They're going to tell me why I'm wrong. People at play dates were, asking about what I believe and stuff, and I just didn't feel like it. And then the mask got harder and heavier. I just got tired. I got so tired of pretending with our friends and just different
Wow.
people. So it started bleeding out even when I didn't want it to.
I love how you said that, like, you didn't feel like you didn't choose deconstruction, it just happened.
Mhm.
It almost reminds me, my path out was through, or through Christianity was Calvinism.
Mhm.
You're familiar with that term?
Yes.
And so it almost makes me think, deconversion didn't choose me. Or I didn't
Predestined.
choose deconversion. Yeah, deconversion chose me. I didn't choose it. I was
Yeah.
predestined to be an atheist. Or Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
Oh, he likes to say at thank God I'm an atheist, or thank
Yeah.
God for making me an atheist.
Yeah.
But it's a good point though. I mean, all kidding aside, like you really can't at a certain point, the questions just come at you, the
Yeah.
discrepancies, the issues, the psychopathic nature of Yahweh,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
moral atrocities of the Old Testament,
Yeah.
the messaging of hell, that the good father would burn his own children forever. It's
Yep.
really so intense, and it's like you can't, once those things stop or start, you can't stop it. You can't just be like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to ignore it all. And
Yeah.
like for me, I when I share my story, I talk about how that song Joshua fought the battle of Jericho. You know
Mhm.
that one? Like
Mhm.
that was my journey. Like it hit me like I'm about to teach my kids. We were singing it as a family when they're little. I'm going
Yeah.
to teach my kids genocide and land theft and slavery. And like, are you really going to do this?
Yeah.
And it took me 3 years, but like I could not stop the questions. It was like a crack in the dam. And
Yeah.
the more you try to put, a little bit of wax in the crack, like there's more cracks everywhere. You can't work fast enough. This dam's going to break.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. But did it feel though to you like that was really scary at first? Cause the whole idea, like you're on a slippery slope. Where does this
Yeah.
lead? Kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I describe it very specifically. I had 2 metaphors that I used. I felt like a boat that had lost an anchor and was thrown into a violent storm, and there was literally nothing I could do but just wait and hope that I didn't flip over. And the other metaphor I always thought of constantly was like, I feel like this balloon, helium balloon with the string cut, and I'm floating out into space, and there is nothing I can do about it. I cannot change direction, especially once I get into space. I am just going the direction I'm already going. Um, and and there was a moment where I felt like I lost everything and everyone, and I knew nobody would have my back. It had to be me. It was a very scary time, and it was when I also realized I couldn't prove my connection to the divine being that I sensed sometimes. I was like, this could not even be real, and that's the only thing I'm clinging to right now. That was scary. Very scary.
It is. It is, especially if you don't really know anybody else that's gone through it, and if everyone else
Yeah.
is kind of like, no, there's no problem. There's never been a problem. This worldview is completely airtight and waterproof, and we're good to go until kingdom come. And it is
Yeah.
very scary. One of the things that I remember saying to a loved one early on was something like this, like, look, I don't know where my studies are taking me, but all I know is that I want to be really honest with the facts and with the truth, and I want the truth more than my current worldview.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope that I can say that as I investigate the truth and pursue the truth, that it does equal my current worldview, that they really are
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
But if they diverge, I'm going to go where the truth takes me.
Mhm.
And I remember Christians hearing me say that and be like, what the hell are you saying? Like, what do you mean you're going to pursue the truth where it takes you, even if it takes you away from your current worldview, which we know
Yeah.
is Christianity, which is the same as
Yeah.
our worldview?
Yeah.
That's not possible. We know that the truth is our current worldview.
Yeah.
But it was like deeply offensive to them that I would say
Yeah.
that. And it's funny, they don't realize how deeply offensive it becomes to you, because you're like, okay, so you're kind of saying I have to pretend that
Yeah.
there's no issues when there really is, which means you want me to be your people, but I can't be myself, which makes you by definition not my people. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you're pushing me away, and you don't even mean, you mean to try to pull me back in the community, but by definition of making me pretend,
Yeah.
I have to go to either by myself, solo, or go to a different community to
Yeah.
talk about these issues. And they
Yep.
they just they literally shoot the wounded, and they push you away without meaning to. And it's crazy, but it kind of, I think for a lot of us, it speeds up the deconstruction, because like,
Yes.
wait a second, I can't be honest in church. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, no, we don't want your honest questions. We want your obedience.
Yeah. Yeah, it was honestly so disgusting to me how often we talked about intentionality, how often we talked about authenticity, being yourself. Like it was constantly a discussion we were having, but it was like, be yourself just in this one way, and do not ever be yourself any other ways. I remember being so scared to ever share like that I was struggling with anything, even if I was just like tired a lot or I was having health issues or anything. I was like, I can't share that because they will begin to, and it was true, they will begin to see me less as a leader and more as one of the members. And then I will lose my position that I, as a worship leader. Sometimes I was working for churches. I would lead worship for conferences. I would lead prayer groups and different things like that. And I knew I would get like demoted really fast if I shared too much of what was really going on. And that wasn't even like the questioning. I knew the questions would get me in a ton of trouble. So I left physically before I ever brought up questions. I never brought them up in a church setting. It just wouldn't have been worth it. The social suicide would have been far too painful for me at the time. And I did those alone. But I do remember when people would say, well, why? Because I was living in a small town in rural Texas. And they're like, why don't you go to church with the rest of us? Like, why? Like, what's your problem with it? Like, they knew I had a problem with it, but I was like, I don't want to explain it. She's going to make you mad and you won't understand. And then I started, like, they would keep pushing me. So I just started being like, well, everyone says that God's good. And then you guys love when he murders his son. And that's insane. Like, have you ever thought of that? That's insane, right? Like, you don't think that's insane? And also he's good, but he created beings that were evil and he knew they were going to be evil. And then he wants to murder them. And then he trades his son. Like, that's insane. Can you not hear that? It's insane. And it just kept going from there, like eternal conscious torment, insanity. This is all insane. Why are we, and the worst part is you're not even calling it like it is. You're saying it's love. So to a child like me, who is developing their worldview, and by 7, you really have your entire subconscious worldview structure kind of installed in your body. And the 7-year-old is taught as their baseline foundational thinking, something that doesn't make sense at all. They have a complete like psyche break, I think, in saying narcissistic abuse is love. And this is your model. This is your model for relationships. This is your model for parenting. This is your model for what you can expect from the world. And then all these other things that are like totally neutral and normal and human are demonized. So you have so much self-hatred. So I see this as like a really bad priming to set people up to accept trauma and abuse and reject inner wisdom and like just normal human things that would keep you safe. They're just so demonized. So I don't like that.
It's amazing when you really dive into, the stuff you're talking about, where you just dwell on it for even years and just think, why was I okay with this? Why was I okay, for example, with the genocide and the land theft and the slavery, and the child brides and the stoning and on and on it goes. Like, what was it about that was really okay? Not necessarily that it was all, wonderful. Like, it wasn't like, yay, God, but like, we would do like, but God has a right to do it. He's the judge. Well, not to the judge of the earth, you're right. But we would, if we didn't applaud it, we would at least be okay with it. And when you step back and you think, this stuff really it totally equated abuse with love, or, narcissism with love.
Yeah.
But it got me to a point to say this phrase, and I don't know if I came up with this or someone else said something like, and it just clicked with me, but it's been a motto that I've said a lot, is that when you believe monstrous thoughts long enough, it turns you into a monster. And I think that's really a truism, because, you look at the psychopathic nature of Yahweh, and you say to yourself, he is my hero. He is my hero. He is my hero. Yeah. You say that long enough, and you say, I'm going to copy him. I'm going to be like him. I want to be just like him. Yeah. And he's doing these things. You're going to do that. You're going to, for example, I remember one of the biggest things that hit me when I deconverted was I was immediately, I at that time, 3 kids, almost 4, but stopped after 4. But it immediately hit me that you need to focus on a child's thought autonomy. And as soon as I thought that, I thought, well, what about their body autonomy? Oh. And as soon as I did, I was like, so we probably shouldn't be spanking our children. Mm-hmm. And I did. I had spanked my children. Yeah. And I stopped very, very quickly. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not. This is a non sequitur. Yeah. But realizing, like, why are we so okay with beating the shit out of our kids? Yeah. We're okay with it because God beats the shit out of his kids. That's the connection. Like, we were doing exactly what we were trained to do by our cosmic hero. Yeah. And it's just crazy and then you see like Christian nationalism, what they're doing to our country. Like, I can connect the dots, and I can see why you're willing to be so awful to your neighbors, right, while loving Jesus and ignoring the Sermon on the Mount. You're willing to do it because that's what God does. God destroys your neighbors in Canaan.
Yeah, because his ways are higher, because we can't understand it, because he's more holy, because holiness doesn't look like our standards for goodness. And I'm like, if we can come up with something better than the goodness of God, then maybe that version of God is not it. Like maybe that's
Hmm.
not it. Having my kids was a huge wake up call for me too. And I will say, like we're talking about the being a monster, like this happened. This is so sad, but I had my first child and I was reading, and I can't remember if it was Oswald Chambers or A.W. Tozer. It was one of those books I was reading at the time. And they talked about in the book that, people in your life can be an idol before God. And you really need to confront that. And especially, he was talking about his son. And he was like, the love I had for my son was an idol before God. And so I prayed that he would take it away from me. And so I'm praying, like, I love this kid so much. Like, I would die for this kid. And I'm like, God, you got to take this away because, and then it goes on. What if God wants to take away your child like Abraham and Isaac? And I'm like, yeah, what if he wants to take away my kid? So I'm praying like, God, you got to break this bond. You got to break this like heart that I have for my kid. It didn't work. I was obsessed with my kid. I took great care of my kid, but I realized like later, like how absolutely insane that is, how disgustingly anti-human that is. And raising my kids, once we started getting into like spankings and other stuff, I just looked at them and I was like, I know they're doing something I don't like. I know they're doing something that's not socially acceptable, but I just don't feel and I don't see this being inherently depraved. Like I know that's not it. And that was another huge part of my deconstruction was I got to do right by my kids. I got to raise them well. And I see goodness. I think I see beauty in their eyes and just bids for connection. What they're calling disobedience. And I'm like, I think this is bids of connection. And I found I'll plug it real quick, an incredible coach, Wendy Snyder of Fresh Start Family, who like carried me on this part of my deconstruction and showed me such beautiful conscious ways to parent my kids where we were like collaborating with them even at young ages for them to start listening inner wisdom, their voice, their values, and figure out like why would they want to do the right thing without the idea of a deity, without the idea of some kind of arbitrary moral compass that's guiding them and forcing them to do things. Like why would they want to do something that's connecting and loving and helpful? And so we've done that since I think my oldest was 2. So, and then my other kids their whole lives. And they are really cool kids. And they do not have a deity hanging over them. Despite me, I still believe in God, but kind of. It's like it's kind of goes back to that nature of reality thing. Like I know I can't prove it, but I just feel a lot of comfort. And so I participate with this idea of the Trinity, but it's so different from, oh gosh, everything else mainstream Christianity. I always
Yeah.
say Christians would not consider me a Christian anymore. But I have a fondness for the idea of an overlay, a framework of the Trinity on this God being that I have this thing with, this connection with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to come back to that, but since just
Yeah.
in case I forget, can I ask
Yeah.
real quick? Because sometimes I do that. I'll say, "Yeah, let's put a pin in that, and keep going with your story, and then we never get
Yeah.
back to it."
Yeah.
But with your idea of God,
Mhm.
how is it different? Like, is God a man? Is the spirit a woman? Is it the mother
Right.
God? Is it just like the Force from Star Wars? Like, what does it look like to you?
Yeah, it's very different. I still really identify with Jesus for some reason. Like it's just very strong for me. And then in the Trinity, I do like to think of like the Father and the Mother God, and then like a family. I love visualizing that, but I also will often like challenge my own gender assumptions. And so I will be switching up the pronouns when I'm thinking and talking about this being this. And sometimes I say source, depending on who I'm talking to too, because I really have no problem with anybody's how they're experiencing or not experiencing any sort of outside forces, spiritual forces. I think it's very telling about our psychology, our traumas, are things we've gone through more than some kind of true thing. Like I can't prove it. But yeah, I really enjoy the family model. Like that's the one I think of the most. And I've been really diving into this feminine idea of source the last few years and trying to challenge the internalized patriarchy that's in me that makes me want to say he first. Yeah.
If you end up, I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit, but
Yeah.
if you end up an atheist in 5 years, I mean, a pure, just raw atheist,
Yeah.
one of the bad guys like me, it's just, there's just nothing. Will that be a trauma for you another trauma to get to that level? Or would that be an acceptable outcome?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a trauma, honestly. Because I can see how much I have shifted to this point and how I don't know, my life is so rich now. So if that became the thing, I could see it being in pursuit of richness, in pursuit of truth, in pursuit of more love, more connection, more being together with humanity. And if that's my value and that's where it takes me, then that's where it takes me.
Hmm. With your kids, did you have anybody sort of reaching out as they're watching you deconstruct and saying like, wait a second, like you're literally putting your kids on the highway to hell, here. What was that like with your, loved ones and your parents?
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. So we never even talked about this. My parents are just like the coolest people, and they are Christian, but they were never they were never radical and indoctrinated like I was. My mom was like, I didn't have enough like self-discipline to be one of those. And they've gone on their own like deconstruction journeys. So it's so easy to talk to them, and I love that. My grandparents also deconstructed, my aunt deconstructed, all at different times and for different reasons. But like we have pretty vibrant conversations, and most of them are like huge fans of what I'm doing. And even if they don't agree with me, they respect it because we got lucky. We got a lot of very open-minded people in my family. Then with some other people in our lives, we had, holy moly, just like, what are you doing? And you guys have lost the Holy Spirit. You've lost the plot. Your kids are going to be raised reckless, inherently evil. They're, all of these things. The thing that bothered me the most wasn't when they talked to me about it. It was when they talked to them directly without me. And we're telling them, your parents, they're not letting you pray before your meal. That's not good. You're not doing this before bed. And they're like, do you even know any worship songs? Do you even know any Bible verses? And the kids are like, I don't even know I don't know what you're talking about or whatever. Or like, yeah, we don't really read the Bible. And gosh, we had so many people who are just like, what's wrong with you? And we'd be like,
I'm guessing you went full mama bear on those people.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, don't ever speak to my children without me. And frankly, like, I don't really want you around them at all, especially the one there was a person who tried to make them sing a worship song in front of a gathering of like 40 people. And it was such a disgusting overreach, and not even reading the room because the rest of the people in that room didn't want it either. Everybody thought it was super weird. And my kids were so uncomfortable. And I like turned around. I'm like, wait, what is that? Come over here. They were little too. They were probably like between 2 and 6 at the time. So they were of like, oh yeah, this person I love in my family wants me to do this. Okay. It was creepy. It was a power move.
It is. It's amazing how kids get used as pawns so much in Christianity, and there's such a drive to get them while they're young to,
Mhm.
the psychological manipulation and the awareness. I was talking with somebody recently about how, they really we really get kids at the time when we're all most selfish. We're most self-centered. And so, if you tell a kid about Santa Claus, of course I want Santa, I want presents, who doesn't? And if you tell a kid there's this beautiful place called heaven where there's no tears, and there's this horrible place where you're going to be alone in the darkness and tortured,
Yeah.
which one would you like to have? Well, your self-centeredness at that point is already on steroids, but of
Yeah.
course, like, I'm going to pick the nice shiny one.
Yeah.
And you get them while they're young, get them while they're selfish, and then get them on that track, and eventually get them to the point where they're groomed so much they have absolutely no critical faculties left to ask
Yeah.
the most basic questions, like, where did this worldview even come from?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big issue for me. And actually, someone left a really interesting comment on one of my Instagram videos recently about how different people just develop their sense of self at different times in their life, just depending on where you come from, what you learned, and all this stuff. And they were saying that's why it's so easy for some people to walk into a religious space and be able to see the difference between their self and whatever's going on there. And then other people can't. They can't differentiate. And I was pondering that. I was like, that's fascinating. And I realized like my sense of self did not start to differentiate until like 22 years old. Like I was pretty old. I could not feel the difference between what was going on there or other people at all and myself. And I saw everything outside of me as guiding force and nothing internal. Like anything internal was bad, it was untrustworthy, it was dangerous, it needed to be dealt with, it was sinful. So I could never tell when someone was trying to control me. I could never have an original thought. And because a lot of my original thoughts and my body was trying to protect me, that got labeled as evil. So like my ability to notice red flags and say this doesn't feel good, that got labeled as evil so young. It was just this perfect closed circuit of being vulnerable to abuse and trauma. Like it was the perfect system for me to be a pawn until I was 22. And the only reason I honestly say that the only reason I got out is because my body gave up first. If my body hadn't given up, I would have gone on to seminary. I would have gone to Oral Roberts. I would have become a major worship leader. And I had the connections and the time and the voice and the presence to do it. I would have done it. But my body was speaking the truth of like, no, we cannot do this. Like you said, living the double life. My body was like, this is killing you. You don't even know yourself. You don't listen to yourself. You ignore everything and you only accept things that hurt you. We're not going to do it anymore.
Mm. It's amazing to me when you look at that whole journey that you really could have easily, I think you and I would do the same thing for myself. You could have easily landed in that spot where you had everything fall in place. And it's one of those things where it's kind of a parallel to what we say in Christianity with suffering. Like suffering seems so bad at the time, but God's going to use it for something good.
Yeah.
So stop complaining about it. Just let him teach you something through it. And not that I would see it, of course, in that way, but in the same sense, I look back at some of the things in my life and, I'm grateful for you that some of the horrible things you went through ended up leading you away from
Yeah.
this simple life where if everything that had ever been promised, like if you just do it Jesus's way, his burden is easy, his yoke is light, you do it his way, the joy of the Lord will be your strength, and you'll have perfect marriage, great kids, great relationship with your church, great outreach, and put the nice big plaque above your mantelpiece that says blessed and highly favored, and just feel so happy, and like that's what God really wants, and
Yeah.
and then you don't get it. And because you don't get it, it specifically makes you ask some really hard questions. Like for me,
Yeah.
I had very, very severe insomnia for 25
Mm.
years. Just
Oh,
I literally, as an 8-year-old, something in my brain clicked one day, and literally in math class, something in math class, I learned a certain when you learn to make fractions and turn them into decimals.
mhm.
The day I learned that, my brain grabbed it, and I thought I was like clever or smart or something, some kind of brilliant kid, because I was like, oh, I'm finding all these patterns, but that was like a curse. And
Mm.
it just kept going and going, and I couldn't sleep anymore. I couldn't
Yeah.
sleep because I would do math facts all night,
Wow.
and the math facts eventually stopped. But for 25 years, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And my pastor even told me, like, it's because you have an unconfessed sin. You really do.
Classic.
Trust me. You're
Yeah.
hiding your sin.
Yeah.
God wants to give you sleep. I moved it from Pennsylvania to Georgia as an adult for a very special doctor who said it's left brain, right brain stuff. Within 1 month, with no medicine, he does some left brain, right brain stuff, and bam, after 30 years, I can sleep. It's just
Wow.
like, but you think to yourself that those decades of struggling made me ask some hard questions, and then other
Yeah.
stuff came up, and other stuff came up, and other stuff kept coming up to the point that it shakes your faith enough to say either God is truly doing something, he's making me suffer to refine me in the refiner's fire, or there's a problem here.
Yeah.
And it's one of those two. Which one is it? And if I
Yeah.
know, I think I would have been susceptible that if everything had fallen the way it should have,
Yeah.
I could still be a Christian preaching. And I'm so
Oh,
glad
yeah.
that I went through the hard stuff so that I woke up.
Yeah. Yep. I'm really thankful too, honestly. And it's made me, like, I say this to people and they laugh, but almost every day I wake up and I go, I'm not in pain. Just like, I'm just so happy to be alive and to be around people. And I wasn't like that before. Before I was like, more healings, more health, more wealth, more people in the kingdom, more this. And I was just never satisfied. And when I did feel satisfied, I was like complacency, gluttony, or whatever. And it's just such a beautiful experience to be at rest in my life and with other people and able to be there. And because of everything I've gone through, like, I don't ever say this to anyone who's going through suffering, because I know what it feels like. Basically, anything anybody could say to anyone in suffering, it's just not really helpful. But this was what I came to myself. I am so glad that I have done life on hard mode, because I have so much empathy for people who are going through it right now. And I typically do not say really horrible things that make them feel worse. I just like to be with them in it, in whatever it is, and offer that, because that's what I needed. And I did not get any of that at my time. I was completely alone through all of my stuff. I just thought it was crazy. I thought it was bad. I thought I was lazy. I thought there was just something super wrong with me.
So take us in a little bit to the actual moment, and maybe it wasn't a moment, but week or month, whatever. Take us to the season when you sort of confronted your old beliefs very directly and said simply to yourself, I'm not that person anymore. I'm done with the terror of facing this. I'm actually making a choice. I'm drawing my line in the sand. That's not my worldview anymore. What was it like? And were you at that stage kind of shocked to think about the ramifications, such as maybe if you were a 6-day creationist, maybe all of a sudden evolution becomes a theoretical option? It might have been true. And maybe heaven and hell are not what you thought they were, even maybe they're not even there. Like, what was that whole process like?
Yeah, I think it happened like almost like like stair steps. Like there was different times where I'd be like, okay, I'm actually done with hell. Like, and that was one. I'm done with penal substitutionary atonement theory. Bam, I'm done. Then there was like, I think I'm actually a universalist. Bam. Like I actually tell people that, and it was intense, because first I just had to do a lot of reading. I wanted to like really make sure I did the theology footwork. And I found lots of kinder theologians who were saying very different things within Christianity. And I thought that was really cool. And that's the only way I would have been able to do it, because if I couldn't have found a Christian who was doing it first, I don't think I would have been able to get to that point, or it just maybe would have taken a lot longer, but I was too scared to leave that far. So first I found Christians who were saying this is BS. And that was really supportive to me. It was so helpful. I just read a lot, watched a ton of YouTube videos, spent hours and hours and hours and hours thinking, researching, reading theology books, reading ancient texts in the early Christian church, realizing like everybody believed so many different things this entire time. We were taught like this tiny little fragment of Christianity as if it was always that way. Hebrew people didn't believe even what we think they believed back in the time of the Old Testament. And they believed so many different things over those, several hundred thousands of years. And so it's just so silly. Like it just occurred to me, like we have boiled some stuff down and like it's not even remotely true. So that irritated me. And then I would say most recently in the last couple of years, I wouldn't have said some things so strongly, like just saying, I just don't, but like very, very real saying, I don't believe in eternal conscious torment. I don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement theory. I'm somewhat of a universalist, but also not even sure about a lot of things. I wasn't able to just say those outright until I decided that it was okay if I couldn't prove it, because I wanted to be able to write like academic papers on these things to like prove it all the way, why I was allowed to not believe it anymore. But something flipped in my brain and I was like, I don't have to even explain why I don't believe this anymore. I don't want to, because the people who want an explanation, the only reason they want it is because they want to change my mind. And I personally don't feel like my purpose or my message or like what I want to transmit to people, I just don't think it's my wheelhouse to like prove anything to anybody. I really want to work on the body. I want to work on intuition, inner wisdom, being able to have your sense of self, feel safe in your own body so you can do that research if you want to, so you can give yourself the permission to explore. Like that's my work. And so I've kind of stepped away from the idea that I have to defend to a T stepping away from these old things. Like I think there's some really obvious logical things you can walk yourself through and say, it can't be this and this. Stop saying this is love when it's murder. Stop saying, whatever. Like that just doesn't make sense. But the hole is deep, and I was holding myself back for a long time because I wanted to be smart or prove myself, and then I decided, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Mm. With all the physical issues that you talked about before, how long did it take as you were starting to think through all this and make some slow transitions? How long did it take for the physical symptoms to resolve?
Yeah. So it's weird because like 5 years before it resolved, I had started to make shifts, but I still hated my body. And so after I decided that maybe my body was okay, maybe living a human life, this was a huge one, maybe living a human life that nobody cares about and is totally insignificant. And I just do like a mediocre, like good enough job with my kids, the best I do with my resources and my time. And I have a garden and whatever. Nobody ever knows what I do. Maybe that's good enough. That thought and that sunshine story, 1 year, and I was completely out of it. and my mental health was like totally stable.
Mm. You mentioned, you said the phrase that you hated your body.
Oh yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit more and what all that meant? Are you referring only to like sexuality or just your body in every which way?
Oh, every single way. Yeah. I hated my sexuality. I tried to emotionally remove my sexuality from myself as a teenager, like intentionally psychologically tried to damage myself through it by deprivation, by punishing myself, by not eating, by like all these different ways to hurt myself, to convince myself out of be like literally just being sexual, like having sexuality. That was part of it. Also, I hated the fact that I needed to eat and that I had to drink water to keep myself alive. It just really irritated me. I was just like, ugh, like I should be able to live on, I don't know, spiritual food, like from God. Like Jesus says, I have food you know not of, or bread you know not of. I was like, why can't I be like that? Like there's just something so awful. I
Wow.
hated that I needed help from people. Hated it. So I just felt so weak and so few people were able to help me. So that created a whole trauma cycle of like, I need help and I can't get any. Yeah. So that's what I mean when I say I hated my body.
Mm. It's crazy that happened to you. Did that turn into an eating disorder?
I think it was disordered eating for sure. I did always eat more than I needed to. I didn't have, I don't know. I didn't go the direction of not eating enough, which is weird, but I would punish myself and I definitely would binge and then I would just punish myself mentally. But it was very disordered eating because, well, I think if other people looked at it, I didn't do it mentally so much as my body manifested a gut problem so severe that I could only eat like, so it probably wasn't an eating disorder, only could eat meat and some vegetables, no spices, no sugar, no preservatives, no fruit even, definitely no grains or starches or anything like that. So that's still a problem. Like it's still an issue I have. And it probably is psychosomatic. It probably has a huge link to what I think. And it's miserable. So yeah, I probably do have a eating disorder.
It's amazing how this stuff connects. You really do in some ways connect dots eventually, slowly during the deconversion process. You're like, so that's related to that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to and if anything I say is like taking us off track, feel free to respond quickly and then take us right back to whatever's on your heart. But one of the things I love about some of the stuff that you bring up on your Instagram page is you talk several times about the idea of rest and how for a lot of us we can't rest, and that does have some very physical outcomes. But for me, and I will readily admit it, like I truly have a tough time resting.
Yeah.
And I think I connect it, and I'm sure there's more to it than I can easily say. We're not like we have a camera in our deep psychology, and the shadow work takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I like to say you can't see your worldview. Your worldview is there. It is pulling all the punches, but it's like the movie Inside Out. You cannot see the inside of that control room. You can't see joy and anger and sadness pulling the levers, but they're doing it, and that's your worldview. And it's hard to see it. It's hard to change it. But I was like you in that I wanted to live my life, as they say, a yard from the gates of hell. I want to run a mission yard from the gates of hell. And it upset me for years to see my loved ones watching 6, 9 hours of football on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And the arrogance was there, but it was also a passion. It was a passion for the gospel and for the lost, for the cross, for the message of salvation, for heaven and eternity, for my Lord's face. I mean, that's the hope of glory, is that we will see his face and we'll be like him. We'll be transformed. We want to be, we know that he's declared us judicially worthy, and someday he will practically fully glorify us and make us worthy, but we want to be on that track of becoming worthy.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be about my Father's business, as Jesus said. And it literally got to a point where even as a young kid, I would literally I'd have a notebook and be like, okay, at 7 o'clock, like if we're done with breakfast at 6:30, I was homeschooled for a lot of it, 7 o'clock, I'm in my Bible. And I literally, I'd have a schedule. 7:15, I'm doing Bible verse memory. By 7:30, I'm praying for missionaries. By 7:45, I'm praying for this. And 8 o'clock, I'm reading my Bible again. 9 o'clock, I'm listening to Christian radio. And I had like a whole list of things that were part of my homeschooling, but it became a routine of like, if you do these things, you're a good Christian.
Yeah.
And I would feel so freaking guilty when I didn't measure it out. Like, why can't you do this? It's not that many things. Like, pray for the lost. And some of them were even like extended family. Pray for missionaries. And on the days I did it, I felt like a good little Christian. On the days I didn't, I felt like a rotten little Christian. But it translated over the years. And honestly, too, I think it's partly related to people's personalities. Some of us are more perfectionistic and OCD in the sense that we know how to jump through the hoops, and we actually do really look good. We look really, really good, and we make it look easy. I could literally look at a verse and memorize it very, very quickly. It's like, that's not spiritual fervor. That's having more of a picture perfect memory for a while. You know, the same thing happened with French. I would take French class, and I would just, my fellow students would be like struggling with learning French, and I would look at a word once and I could pronounce it perfectly and I'd never forget it. I'm like, that's not like spirituality. That's just you're good at memorization. But because you look good, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get built up, you build yourself up. And of course, as a white male guy, you get, oh wow, he's a young man on fire for God. Like, who is this? And I remember even at one point, the pastor of our church, he'd been there for like 20 years, but he and his wife eventually moved to Italy to be missionaries. And there was a pastoral search for a couple of years, and this new pastor came, and he's getting to know everybody for the first 6 months. And literally one of the elders came to me and said, just so you know, this pastor, he's coming to us as elders and saying, like, I love being here in this church, but who is Tim? Like, he is on fire for God. Like, who is this guy? Like, I've never seen anyone like him in any church. And like, you hear that stuff, like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm changing the world for God. Your head gets puffed up, and your perfectionism says, keep going, keep going, keep going. If you get off this cycle, your influence is going to drop. And as a deconverted person, as an atheist, I still can't watch, like, if I even if it's just like watching Disney Plus on my phone or something for a minute while I'm cooking dinner. If I watch more than 5 minutes of TV, I feel guilty. I just don't. I like, if someone says, what movie are you watching tonight? I'm like, I don't watch a movie tonight. I watch a movie over 2 weeks, 5-minute increments, because I feel so guilty, and it's still there. And I acknowledge that. And that's why I work from early in the morning to late at night. How do you deal with that side of life of like, oh my gosh, like, Christianity was supposed to teach me how to rest, and the Sabbath and all this stuff, the promised land, enter into the rest. And I can't rest because of Christianity.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Absolutely struggled with it. Part of what taught me how to rest was my body gave up. So like, part of it was like, I physically couldn't do anything else. But the interesting thing I noticed was, even when I was physically unable to do anything, my mind was still in a state of chaos. It was in just total ruminating thoughts, just thought loops that I couldn't stop. And so, I still, like, it depends on the time of my life. Like right now, my life is really busy right now. And so I am having a little bit more trouble at this moment, but I feel like I did start to touch the ground mentally in a way that I never had the entire rest of my life in the last few years. And what I discovered by accident was that I was approaching everything, living my entire life through an intellectual, like, mental way. I was living my life in my head. Even the things that I considered spiritual, I was still really doing that mentally more than anything else. And I wasn't letting myself feel anything. In our church, emotions were super demonized unless it was positive. So you were definitely, sinning if you felt angry, if you felt sad. And then I just started to like be mad. Like I remember a very specific time, the first time ever, because I was also punished as a kid, like for having any big emotions as well, because we had very traditional Christian parenting. So I was spanked for crying too much. I was spanked for being angry, whatever. So I was just keep that on lock for me. But there was a time like a few years ago that I could feel myself getting really angry at someone. And I was like, I think I'm going to let this out. Like, I think I need to say this. I think this is actually important. And so I like slapped a table and I was like, I am so mad at you. And this is why. This is what happened. It was reasonable. And then I think there was like a brick wall next to me and I went like this and I like broke a little blood vessel in my hand. And afterward, I was like so peaceful. And it was the first time this other person had heard how I really felt, because I had been not actually telling them how I felt. And they're like, I had no idea you felt like this. And then it was like this super connection moment. And they're like, I'm so glad you told me. And this is amazing. And here's what I'm going to do to fix what you're talking about. And please keep telling me how you really feel. And that was a huge, like, oh, like these emotions, these big emotions, are not dangerous. They don't have to be dangerous. They can be if you have 20 years built up and you have no idea how to deal with it. Yeah, they can explode in ways that can hurt people. And so that's something to be mindful of, but not processing them just makes them bigger and bigger. They do not go away. And eventually they get so big emotionally in your mind, they will bleed into sickness. And like Gabor Mate has a book called The Myth of Normal, where he talks about the research on anger and how it actually is one of the factors for people getting very ill. And I'm careful when I talk about that, because I never, ever want to imply that a medical condition is not a medical condition. It can be solved mentally or like just with fairy magic, because that was used against me a lot. And I'm never saying that. And he even talks about that's not what he's saying. He's just saying it's one of the risk factors in diseases you get that will need to be both medically and potentially with therapy or other ways treated with other things. And he was just saying that's a more full way to look at those illnesses. So processing emotions is a huge part of it. And now I do that very specifically. Like if I feel myself about to start crying, even if I was on like a live stream or something like this, I try to like actually let myself do it. And sometimes that's hard, but I let it happen because it's information in the moment. Anger is typically your justice button is being pushed, and it's the energy you might need to confront something that's happening. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Getting rid of that is a great way to manipulate and control you and turn you into one of the group who will listen. And then like sadness is just so important, and grief. These are the things we have to do. We can't move on to like being okay without those things. So that's part of it. The other part of it that I didn't know I started doing by accident was nervous system regulation. I didn't understand that when I was in burnout and chronic illness, what had happened was I only learned to live in a state of chronic stress and anxiety. And then when I would go out of that, I call it like the high end of nervous system dysregulation. I would never go into regulation. I would just skip to the low end of being out of my range of capacity, out of being able to rest. And I would just be dead, like collapsed. I have to sleep for hours and hours and hours and hours. I can't move my arms. And I would literally just skip regulation and just be in the two worst ends of dysregulation. But I started to do yoga. I started to run. I started to be outside a lot in the sun. I had my feet in the dirt often. I didn't know why. I just knew it felt good because my thing was like, I'm following what feels good. And then I was like, and I'm sinful for sure. This is definitely sin. Like literally just thinking like, oh, it feels nice in the sun. I'm like, this is probably sin. And started working out, started eating food that I really liked, very like intuitively more than anything else. And all of those things started to let my nervous system know that we were not in danger anymore. And that's what happens. Your nervous system thinks even with emotional things, it's treating something very simple. Like, say you get an email from a debt collector, and that triggers a whole psychological thing of stress, right? Like, that debt collector is not going to come to your house and shoot you with a gun. So you're not actually in physical danger, but your body's going to react the same way as if it is. And that throws you into either, fight or flight, where you have energy, your adrenaline's going, you're ready to go and do something about it, or freeze, and you're going to go more play dead. And we get stuck in those places. And it happens because of our culture. Our culture it thrives on those states. Our culture loves those states. When they want to control us, they love a freeze state. When they're getting work out of us at a corporation, they love that fight or flight state. It makes you very productive, but it'll eventually kill you. And so what I didn't know I was doing was I was coming back and telling my body, that debt collector email or call or whatever, they can't actually physically hurt me. I'm here. My feet are in this dirt. The sun is shining. I'm alive. It's safe to experience that. And then once I'm in that state, I can actually deal with whatever the threat was or the stressor way better, because then my logic goes back online. And so I did that with all kinds of little things. And then I found out about nervous system tools, and I found out about all these other ways. But basically, like, so many of them are just things that feel good, or you might naturally do if you are not so productive. And trying to check off boxes. That's what cracks me up the most. Every time I find out something new that's very regulating to humans, I just laugh. They're like, touching a plant really helps. Hugging a cat really helps. It's like, oh, it's just things that you would just naturally be doing, especially like kids. You notice kids. The kids will be on the ground and they'll be like rocking like this, and they'll be like, They're regulating their nervous system. We just don't do that as adults because it's inappropriate in a societal setting.
I love what you're saying. I relate. What is it called? Have you ever heard of shuffle dancing?
I was just thinking about that. No, but
Okay.
I want to.
I'm now divorced. Just got divorced last week. And came through. But we've been living in two homes, and we're on a week off thing where 50% of the time I'm by myself. And it's important for me to use that time to work, and I do. I work very hard, but I've been using that time also in the sense of the privacy of, like, there's literally nobody here watching me.
Yeah.
And I will literally, like, turn on shuffle dance videos and just do them. Just do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes too, like, you'll find songs, just some certain songs, just I don't know what it is, but they just make you want to dance.
Yeah.
And like freeze, not like some kind of a formal, like, just like dance like you're like no one's watching.
Yeah.
Just let it go. And that has been so freeing to me. And I love doing it. I don't do it enough because I'm like, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be working. But when you let yourself go, it really is helpful. And it's amazing too how this relates to sexuality and eroticism, where you really
Absolutely.
do learn to heal your shame, and you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I've been ashamed of my body, but also I've just been afraid of pleasure and
Yeah.
of the whole thing. And it's like, it's a beautiful thing to realize. Yeah, I don't think I realized that I was doing it, but you realize eventually that, like, you can experience pleasure and truly be like completely shame free. Like, you
Yeah.
look back at it after, like, I have no shame over these thoughts or this activity. Like, there's
Yeah.
no shame at all. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's part of the whole package of, like, just learning to be safe in your own skin and safe in your own thoughts again.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of us are dealing with, is we have not been safe in our skin or in our mind.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot on this channel about how we're truly, like, when we get down to it and find, and someone like you and some of the other great guests helps us find the words for what we're trying to say, and we can't figure out a way to say it. But when someone comes on, for example, and says something like, you realize that the core of this issue is simply self-contempt. You hate yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole thing's about. You've hated
Yeah.
yourself for so long.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I have, like, this is all about self-contempt.
Yeah.
But you start to process that. And I think one of the words that comes to my mind a lot, and Janine will be in the comments will be applauding me for saying this, but a lot of it comes to shadow work. We're saying you have such deep layers of this onion that you are not aware of. And I use the word worldview, but whatever, go to Carl Jung, go to shadow work. But it's like, there's layers here where if you could just get to the point where you could say to yourself, you can't love yourself if you don't know yourself. You can't love yourself well if you don't know yourself well, and you don't know how to know yourself well because you've been a mask this whole time.
Yeah.
What a journey it is, but boy, what a beautiful thing to say. I'm at least starting to open some of those very, very closed, locked doors for the first time, and I don't know where this is going to take me, but
Yeah.
I want to at least give it a shot and figure out who the hell am I? Because so
Yeah.
far I've been Tim as a Christian,
Yeah.
but I don't know who just plain old Tim is, you know?
Oh, that's so good. And that's something I've been saying for the last couple years of how I'm approaching life with Christianity. It was like, let me figure out what the right thing is and then I'll do that. Actually, oh my gosh, I remember I used to pray that I mean, I probably prayed that 100,000 times, was like, God, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Anything, like anything. Like I will go kill myself. I will go to another country. I will put myself in a war zone. If you just tell me what to do, I'll just do it. And the funniest thing was, what I would always hear from this connection that I had was they would be like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I would get so mad. But now I've really removed the idea of shame because shame is so dependent on society and culture. Like something that's totally shameful in our culture is totally celebrated in another culture and vice versa. So it's like, it's not, there's so much of it that's not real. It has to do with connection. It keeps us in a healthy community usually because it tells us what's going to be acceptable and what's not. And it's very primal. It's just our instinct to not be rejected and cut ourselves off from our resources. So it makes sense. But we have so many ways to self-resource nowadays that it's way overblown, which is probably why religion has had to be instated with all this like eternal consequences in order to like keep the shame there, because we are not in life or death situations nearly as much as we would have been in tribal times, where if you were shamed, you would be cut off and then you might not get food and you might die. That doesn't necessarily have to happen anymore. So we have a lot less primal need for shame. So I've been saying it like this. I'm running everything like experiments. Like I make a hypothesis about what I think will happen. But I know I don't know because you never know. And then I go try to do something and then I see what happens and then I take that information and I'd have zero shame if it went a different way or if it went, even if it was bad or painful or didn't like it or something, or someone got hurt in the situation. I'm not going with shame. I'm going with, that's good information. And I've been talking to my clients a lot about that too. Like, cause they're like, I'm doing this and I don't know if it's the right thing. And I haven't thought hard enough about it. I'm like, are you running experiments right now? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, are you learning something? And they're like, oh, I could be, but I'm beating myself up about it. Like, maybe you should just start learning from these things. And that's so healing, especially with sexuality, after purity culture, because purity culture, gosh, I don't even know. It is so destructive to the human psyche. It is so bad, but it's really funny when you're healing from purity culture and you're exploring sexuality after all that. I don't know if this happened to you, but you realize you were trained just this one little tiny little section of what is and isn't acceptable. But then you realize you don't actually have any real world skills. Like there are real things you need to know about how to be safe. You need to know about the kinds of people that you're interacting with. And it has nothing to do with morals or spirituality. You just need to know like how to talk to people, how to keep yourself safe in dating situations, all that. You're not taught any of that in Christianity. So it makes you really, like me, very vulnerable at like a fairly old age. And I'm having to learn stuff that I should have learned in sex ed, or I should have learned in just general like knowledge from friends who were going out and stuff, who would have been able to, like really small things, but even like watch your drinks and be careful where the dates are happening. Like there's just really important things. And I just think it's funny. It's funny because Christianity infantilizes us so much, like in so many ways, and outsources our thinking and our ability to like even just take care of ourselves on like a super basic level. And so like depending on when someone deconstructs, it can be crazy the life skills that they now have to learn at whatever advanced stage they are at. But also for anyone who's listening, there's no shame. Like you can realize that, and then you can see your area of needing a skill and like give yourself a lot of compassion, because it's not you. It's not your fault. You didn't cause this problem by being immature or something. Like it was pretty systematically denied of you.
Yeah. I love too what you were saying about how Christianity infantilizes us. I remember reading a while ago somebody talking about the idea that for a lot of our traumas that we go through in childhood, if we bury them, that sometimes what happens is that we kind of can learn to ignore them until we have our own children and they reach that age. And it's so fascinating because like that is exactly the age when my kids were the age at which I became a Christian. That was the age at which I began to deconstruct and say, wait a second.
Mm.
And I don't know if they're truly connected or if it's just an irony, but it also makes you think, at least in terms of the shadow work, that in many ways, this is about reparenting yourself. This is about going back to your earlier childhood and saying,
Yeah.
what was I taught and how? And I'm working on some projects to do this, but I just love the idea in a poetic and creative sense to say, you really kind of need to figure out a way to go back in time in your mind in a fictional but meaningful way and talk to your earlier childhood self. You have to
Yeah.
have some conversations because that earlier childhood self needs to know what you've now learned,
Yeah.
and you need to go back in time and reclaim your life a little bit. But
Yeah.
also both of you, both your younger version of yourself and your current version, need to kind of have a conversation in advance with your future self and say, life's going to get better starting
Yeah.
today. And so future self, I know we can't have that conversation yet because I don't know what you're going to say to me, but future self, I'm doing my best to make sure that just like I wish I could have helped my younger self be prepared to be the best today, I'm doing for sure the best I can with my current self and my hopefully healing child self to be the best I can for my future self. And
Yeah.
you have these kind of conversations through time, and it can be so very healing to at least again, it's not like any of us can make it all happen just because we want to. Some of this is
Yeah.
so layered, but at least to say I'm on the journey and I admit I have not had the understanding or the vocabulary for it, but I'm trying and I understand that there's a lot at stake here and there's a lot of stuff that's like it's stealthy, it's hidden. And if you just want this quick, I'm not a Christian anymore, so therefore I'm healed from religious trauma, like it's not how it
Mm-mm.
works.
Mm-mm.
And I love that illustration we used to use in church of like with sin, like there's the iceberg, but then there's the real iceberg under the water. There's
Yeah.
and like you may have just left Christianity with the iceberg, but there's a whole religious trauma iceberg under the water that you haven't even started yet.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I was gonna say if you want to respond to that, and then after you respond, I was gonna say we might take a minute to read a few of the comments.
That sounds good. Yeah. And we do that actually in my work with my clients. We often will go back and reparent. And the biggest thing that comes up usually is judgment. It's like they are judging themselves for having stayed for so long, for dealing with it for not recognizing it sooner, for just all these different things. Like why did I get into it? Why, especially those of us who got into extremely high control churches, like how did I get involved in a cult? Like I'm smart, right? Like what? And so going back and really like offering like that self-compassion is so important. And in terms of like neuroscience and just the way our brains work, when you are reprocessing memories, when you're going back and thinking about different things, and you can just do this on your own, your brain doesn't necessarily need to know what time it happened. Like it's going to get really effective benefits out of even imagining, even just coming up with another timeline or saying, and like working through it, not bypassing it, but just working through it with that little you or with whatever. That's been shown to be extremely effective for PTSD and other survivors. So I always encourage that. And we don't have to feel silly that it's not real. It doesn't really matter because the benefits of it are real and they have been backed and there has been studies done proving that it works. So I like to lean on that.
Mm, That's awesome. One thing I meant to add before I'll add this real quick and then jump to the comments, but
Mhm.
we were talking about purity culture and how it messes with us. And, it obviously messes with people in different ways. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it, how there's people that I've learned that people can literally look at the same exact teaching and come away with like a very different response to it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do some presentations on that because I think a lot of us are like, we're calling things purity culture and we literally are saying the opposite sides of it. But anyway, one of the things that how it came across to me was that men aren't supposed to lust.
Mhm.
And, that was the big deal, like don't lust. And I came across a writing by C.S. Lewis, and C.S. Lewis was everything to me as a kid.
Yeah.
But C.S. Lewis has a story, I think it's in The Great Divorce, where he talks in that book about how if you could see a person's true end, excuse me, if you can see a person's true end game, like where they're going to be in eternity, they're either going to be a hideous monster in hell, like a demon, or they're going to be so glorified by God that they're going to be like an angel that you would be tempted if you could see them now in your human state, and them in their future state, you'd be tempted to worship them like an angel that's so glorious it's going to blind you. They're not just a human. They're either a monster or they're an angel in the making. And so I would literally, as a desire to not be attracted and mesmerized by a woman's curves, for example, if I saw a beautiful woman like passing on the street, I would immediately think to myself, there is just as good as a chance as not that she is not a believer and is on her way to hell. And
Right.
therefore, it doesn't matter that she's got a beautiful body. What matters is her soul. And so there was this movie that I think it was Firestarter, with Stephen King or something like that, or Carrie, but where this child could literally like make people just, or this person could literally like look at people and get angry at them and just make them burst into flames. And so in my mind, as a teenager trying very hard to not lust after a woman,
Hmm.
I would in my mind see her in flames. She'd be walking across the street and I would see her. I would in a sense almost like kind of peel off the skin, as it were, but I'd be like looking at the muscles. I'd be looking at muscles on fire.
Hmm.
Like a skinless body with muscles on fire.
Hmm.
Not very sexy. Nothing about that's lustful. It's horrifying, but it would make me think that's the right way to see it, because forget about the curves. Think about her eternal state. And so I literally trained myself, and it was like a spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
Train yourself to see people, especially women, as on fire on the way to hell, and that will keep you from thinking that their curves are so attractive.
So
And
bad.
it messed with me so much. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's funny. One of the guys that, or the main founder of Recovering from Religion, Dr. Darrell Ray, he's a great guy. We had an interview, and he's, if you ever get a chance to listen to him, he's awesome. But he and I were even talking about the issue of pornography,
Hmm.
and how, even as deconverted people, we often tend to fall into the same category where like porn is always wrong. And he's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Porn isn't always wrong. And he's like, some porn can be healthy. And it helped me to think through a lot of aspects of lust in a very different way. And it's fascinating how you just think to yourself, man, I haven't even started living yet. I'm decades old and have not started living my life yet. I don't know what's up and down yet. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for
read a
sharing
few quick comments here. I'm going back to the early parts of this, so some of these are going to feel like we moved on from the topic. But
that. Sure.
Jade was talking about your story. I can't imagine, Allison. Shell says your husband should have been protecting you, not using you and blaming you for his own shortcomings. Yeah.
I do want to say for him, I mean, we learned the same thing. So I'm not defending it, but I know why it happened, and both of us were just, sold out on these teachings. So he thought he was supposed to do it. He literally thought, kind of like what you're saying, he thought he was doing the right thing. Well, at least I'm not looking at porn, or at least I'm whatever. So yeah, he's not a bad person whatsoever, and he's super aware of it now. So I'm just shout out to him.
Yeah. It's like when we know better, we do better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jade says, I can relate some. I felt more meaninglessness as a Christian than I do now, which is the opposite of what Christianity claims. It's amazing. So many people who've come through this channel say there's so much more peace on this side of deconstruction and deconversion.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I was predestined to be a vessel for destruction. Yeah. Romans 9.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that, Shell. Yep. I mean, that's literally what it says, that he made some vessels for destruction to burn eternally in conscious torment. Yeah. Yeah. That verse where, what is the use of a vine if it does not produce grapes? Is it useful for making a shelf? No. Well, what can you do with it? There's only one thing you can do with it. Let it dry out and burn it up and let it display the white hot glory of God's hot wrath. Yeah. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Calvinism 101. And Shell says it's Romans 9:22. Like, what the hell? How do you say God is loving and all good, but then he purposely created people to burn? Yeah.
Right. That
And
falls apart when you start looking at kids. Most of the time you're like, created. Well, and then I share this story a lot, but we had a bag of clothes that someone donated us for our youngest baby, and they came from Calvinists, and one of the onesies for a newborn baby had an evil looking snake on it, and it said original sinner. And I couldn't even believe it existed. I actually burned it because I didn't want anybody else to ever have that. That was someone looking at a baby and being like, I love the total depravity doctrine. I love that. Like, let's make a shirt about it. Let's joke about it. It's insane.
I've told the story in this channel a time or two, but the main church I was at before I deconstructed, It's a Presbyterian and Calvinist, Reformed church here near Atlanta called Perimeter Church. And one of the biggest memories I have from that church is the pastor talking about how he was counseling a woman who had lost her baby. The baby had probably died like in the first year of its life. And he had gotten permission from her to share the story and what he counseled her. And he said, I'm going to tell you all what I told her. And he said, and this is, you got to get your theology straight. He said, ma'am, you're not going to grieve properly until you get your theology about this situation right. And the theology you need to get right is your baby deserved to die. Everyone does. And the fact that you're breathing for another second is a grace from God. And it's crazy. Calvinism is a monster.
There's also the phrase of the only reason God didn't kill me after he saved me is because he wanted me to tell other people about him. Wow, that really makes me want to tell other people about him. And that would really make them want to listen. Like, that's just insane.
It's crazy when you just to harp on that a second. When you think about if humans did that stuff to each other, like I love the illustration. Other people have said something similar, but I've used it too, where a guy gets down on his knee and he's like, my darling, I love you. I'd like to ask you to marry me. He reads off this nice proposal. He's got the ring, and he's like, and he says the words, "Will you marry me?" And he says, but don't answer yet. And he runs to the car and he opens up the trunk and he gets out a baseball bat and he says, I really hope you're going to say yes, but if you don't, I will beat the shit out of you right now. I will beat you to death. Like,
so bad.
Like, yeah, what kind of love story is that? What kind of
Yeah.
love story is that? But that's
Yeah.
exactly what, we're married to a mob boss. We're married to Yahweh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jade says, I was just about to bust out my Bible to find it. Thanks for the reference. Yep. Yeah, Shell and I were just talking the other day about how we've got Bible verses in our head. When you do Bible quizzing for years, especially, it becomes part of your blood. Yep. I was a good little Christian. I know my Bible. Yep. Janine says, remember, less of us, more of Christ's identity is what is expected. Then you look around and everyone is dressed the same and speaks in that whisperer voice and screaming.
That's so true. And that is so messed up too, because you just keep thinking like, I want to be less like individual and unique. And like, I just need to be more like whatever. I don't know. It's so creepy to me to think that way. And it seems kind of chill on the surface, but it creates self-hatred. It really, really does. And self-abandonment. And you continue to put yourself in situations that hurt you because you need to have less of you. So it's weird. Like, we would never say that out loud at the time, but like, it makes sense. Like, I want to get rid of myself. So I'm going to invite suffering. I'm going to invite abuse into my life as a way to make that happen. Ugh.
Yeah, that theology of suffering, God's doing this on purpose to make you holy.
Yeah.
I remember in Bible college, we literally used to pray, God, do whatever it takes to make us holy, especially if you have to crush us. And I remember, the name Johnny Erickson Tata?
No.
She is a lady who, in her teenage years, she dove into a shallow lake, snapped her neck as like a 15-year-old, and was a quadriplegic. Like, she felt nothing in her body from her neck down. And she just used it utterly for the last 50, 60 years. I think she may still be alive. She was in John MacArthur's church, but she'd use it for just constantly praising God for like, God did this to make me holy. God did this to glorify, like, this is all about God's glory.
Yeah.
And I remember literally praying, God, like, if you need to make me a quadriplegic for your glory, like if it's that or be a sinner, it's like the whole, you pull out your eye or else you're going to go to hell. And it's crazy. We wanted it. We wanted it so much. Yep. You're expected to lose your identity.
Yes.
Yeah. Zombies. The other day, Janine sang the zombie song for us on our deconversion poetry slam. So it was a great job.
Nice.
Janine, just so you know, I love that you sang that song, but they did demonetize that video.
Oh, bummer.
It's okay, but it was worth it. Sing it anytime you want to. It was more than worth it. I loved it. You did a great job. But YouTube is so sensitive to anything that's copyright stuff. That's they killed me, but no worries. It was more than worth it. I would do it again 100 times. Let's see here. Jade says, reading from the Bible from a different mindset is so revealing. Yeah. You can't question the potter. And it's funny, Paul even anticipates in Romans 9, he anticipates questions. He says, you all are going to question me. Why did you make me this way, God? And Paul never even answers it. He just simply says, does the thing formed, which in Greek is the word plasma, Does the thing formed have the right to say to the creator, why did you make me this way? He doesn't even answer the question. He just says, you have no right to say that to God. There's no good answer. It's just shut up, basically. Um, can't question the potter, even if he doesn't even follow his own standards. He gave the commandment to love, but then does he do that? No.
Interesting.
Janine says, he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a
Mm.
monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. Friedrich Nietzsche. Nice.
Yep.
Thank you for that quote. That's awesome.
Excellent.
Jade says, that flip switch on spankings was so hard. I still deal with the guilt of that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I as well. I apologize to my kids about 50 times for that.
Mhm.
And for, of course, exposing them to Christianity. But Janine says, I think this exists in the Bible to numb you to your bonds with your own kids and loved ones, so you will serve the church without batting an eye at stuff that would otherwise go against our instincts.
That's 100% true. And I always say it's like intentionally removing your agency, your inner knowing, your like compass to know what's safe and what's not safe. Like intentionally taking out your instincts. That is so true. And it makes us easy to control. It makes us stuck inside the system a lot longer. And it sets us up for so much dangerous behavior, like really risky behavior that hurts us. Even after we get out, I still deal with this with people who have deconstructed for a long time, and they continue to find themselves in like narcissistic, abusive relationships, or they just continue like hurting themselves, and they can't figure out why. Like, why is this happening to me? And it's usually this: they do not trust themselves because they've been trained not to. This is even people who've left.
Yeah, it's amazing how your instincts as a loving parent that have evolved over, hundreds of thousands of years, maybe longer.
Yeah,
Like this literally wants you to shut it all down. It's crazy.
yeah,
HVAC says women heal. I can see a divine force being feminine. Yeah, absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, and honestly, when you look at early Christianity, they looked at the Holy Spirit as a much more feminine personality, and it makes sense. Like there's a father, there's a son, and there's a mother. Like that makes perfect sense. And there's so many other existing mystery cults from the Greco-Roman time that had that exact dynamic. They really, I mean, patriarchy really did a number on this. Janine says these people don't have any boundaries. Oh my God, yeah.
Wait, going back to the feminine one, I just wanted to say I am having a podcast, the next one that I'm releasing. I don't know when I'm releasing it, but it's specifically with a feminist scholar from the UK. I believe she has a PhD, and she has studied the Old Testament and the way that they erased the Hebrews' original belief in the divine feminine in Asherah.
Mhm.
And it is crazy fast. I mean, this one has so much information in it, archaeological, historical, documented stuff that the Hebrews believed. And I think it's amazing. It gets into the politics, it gets into patriarchy, it gets into how Josiah probably wrote the texts he found that made everyone destroy the Asherah poles. Like he probably just literally wrote them and pretended to find them. So it's fun. So yeah, if anyone wants to
That's
check that
awesome.
out, it's the Recovering Radical, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Yeah. So that's
I
coming
love
out
that.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have to watch that and reach out to her as well to see if she'll come on my channel. But yeah, that
She
is so
will.
true.
Yeah.
And when you think about like how that affected all the other stuff later, like with Mary Magdalene, and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my goodness, like there's so many, there's all these other even gospels, and there's female apostles. Like,
Yep.
what the hell? Where's Junia and all this stuff? But
They
anyway,
just found this was recent, like I want to say in the last couple of months, they just found that there was a woman that was in the New Testament that had been mistranslated to a male name, and they just figured it out like recently, and they were excited. There's one more woman in the Bible that nobody knew about.
nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it is crazy to think about the damage we've done to women in the name
Yeah.
of our gods. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, these people don't have any boundaries. I'm still in a place where I haven't told my family. We did decide to send the kids to public school next year, and that was shocking enough for our parents. Yeah, when you're in ultra fundamentalism, a public school is anathema. Why
Yeah.
would you send your kids, Christians kids, you'd never, pagan kids, atheist kids aren't going to send their kids intentionally to a Christian school. So why would Christians send their kids to an atheist school? And it's amazing. It's absolute poison, but
Yeah.
I get
And
it. I get it. I was
also
there. I was there.
on the matter of difficulty telling people, because this comes up a lot in my work, and there's kind of a little bit of a dichotomy of Christianity does condition you to overshare things and give people more access to your life than you need to give them. And so I always tell people but you don't owe anybody an explanation. You never owe anybody more information about what you're doing as a family, especially if you don't feel like you're in a place to be able to handle their pushback, because that just opens a door for them to be able to tell you what to do. And it can be really stressful. Even if you don't listen to them, it's just stressful. So I always say you never have to say anything. And eventually the pain of having their rejection or having their frustration with you might be less than the pain of not being known for who you are. And then sometimes it's good to do it. But I always say you don't owe anyone an explanation. So you do what you need to do and protect your own mental space. Like, it is not wrong to keep information back from people you know that are going to use it against you, So.
Well said. Do you know the name Abraham Piper?
No, I don't.
You know the pastor John Piper?
Mm-hmm.
His son Abraham Piper. I mean, honestly, all these pastors, their kids keep deconverting. But Abraham Piper is deconverted, and he's got a long TikTok about this exact thing. I'll remind me to send it to you, but it's great. I'll try to add it for everybody in the links after this video for if you want to watch later. But he goes on for 5 or 10 minutes about this exact thing, and it's related to the concept too that a lot of us are still addicted in our healing process we're addicted to healing, but in Christian ways. And
Yes.
in some ways we need to figure out how to deconstruct, but not in a Christian way, and heal not in a Christian way. We play by their rules. I mean, these roots go so deep.
I always say that we have to deconstruct these systems and the processes just as much as we have to deconstruct actual doctrines. And I see it all the time where people will leave certain ideas, but they don't leave the way they look for new ideas. And so they go and they try to find a new group, a deconstruction group that believes everything they believe. And what's unfortunate is there are a lot of them. There's so many deconstruction Facebook groups where you're only allowed to say the new thing that everyone else believes. And I hate that. I'm so passionate about reminding people that they don't need a pastor. They don't need a guru. They do not need a spiritual guide. Like people have what they need within them. And there are people who can assist us on our journeys, but ultimately they should be pointing you back to how resourced you already are and how much ability and capacity you have to find what you need. So I'm like, I always want people to confront that when they're going out and they're like, well, what do I do? Well, how do I do it? Well, what do I believe now? No. Like, start asking yourself that and see what comes up.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like we're the filter. I use a French press for my espresso in the morning. Like, if you're switching from coffee to tea with that French press, like, you better change that filter. You can't just use it with dirty coffee grinds. And that's what we're doing. We're using an old dirty filter for healing, and it doesn't work that way. But anyway, I will try to get you that link for Abraham Piper. It's amazing. And Chuck Swindoll is the pastor. His son deconverted. I've interviewed him. The guy that was the main character in that movie, The Thief in the Night, about the end times. His son deconverted. Interviewed him. It's just all these.
It's very telling.
It is.
Yeah, and also everybody's like going to jail right now, and I'm finally, some people are like, okay, you were right, and I was like, I've been saying it this whole time, and I was pointing to theology, I was pointing to doctrines, I was pointing to unhealthy ways they were running their churches and stuff like that, and community. But I was like, I promise you, there's other stuff going on. And now they're like, okay, exactly. It was happening.
And hopefully that trickles down to our current administration ASAP.
Yes.
I somehow doubt it, but see here, Jade says grandparents using my kids as a pawn is one of my fears. Yeah.
But you have boundaries, like use them, honestly. You do not need to let people control what you're doing in your life. And you're there to protect your kids. So, I mean, we went no contact with one parent for a long time, and then had to put some very severe boundaries in place with the other one, because it was so inappropriate, and the kids were feeling nervous or confused or whatever. But they don't have any right to be part of your children's development, especially if they are going to be doing it in a way that's negative and hurtful. So you got it. Well, whoever you are, parent, you got it. You have what you need.
And also, just to add, one of the best things you can do is not just in terms of the ongoing protection, but more of an inoculation. Teach them mythology.
Yep.
If they understand that the stories in the gospel are
Yeah.
literally copied from Dionysius, and they're literally copied from Homer's Odyssey. If you can show them that that's the case, that when they think they're reading Jesus, they're reading Homer, they're reading the Greco-Roman mystery cults, they're reading copycats from other sources, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Like eventually, it's like, wait a second, you know, these other gods did these other gods. You know, I remember Hermes. You know, there's a story where Jesus is up on a mountain and he comes down and he walks across the water to the boat. There's a story hundreds of years earlier where Hermes, they're known as the Flash, you know, with the golden slippers and little wings off his slippers. The Flash, Hermes, who walks down the mountain, walks across, and he zips, you know, to help somebody. It's like these are the same stories. They're
So
repeating the same
interesting.
stories. You know,
Wow.
Dionysius turns water into wine, rides into town on a donkey. He has a bunch of women following him. Like it's the same stuff. And they, you know, eat his flesh, drink his blood. Like, come on, this is the same stuff. We're just rehashing it. We're not really following Jesus. We're following, and that's the thing to me. Like, and this isn't to, I don't mean this to patronize you, but about what you think about Jesus. But just like for a lot of people, when they talk about Jesus, I'm like, if you really want Jesus, he's copied from other sources. So just go to the earlier sources. Like, let's just follow Dionysius. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying Dionysius has some really good teachings.
That's interesting.
Or whatever. You know, it's just, it goes on and on. But
Yeah.
save that for another day. Janine says, "Good for you, Jade. It's your life. My kids love public school and they're doing better academically." Janine, thank you for saying that. Hearing others say that they have done the same is so encouraging. See here, Eric, I banned him. I'm not sure what he was doing. I'm not sure he was a troll, but he was just way off topic. Janine says, "Yep, they build all of what they do on young people, and they use everyone with until they are drained. I think it causes illness in many."
Yeah, using free labor of younger people constantly. And that's like such a freaking issue. I mean, the amount of money they're saving in the churches by giving you some kind of internship or discipleship program. I can't even tell you how many houses I've built, how many things I've created, and some of the things I wanted to do. But some of the times it was like, this is just for the church. Like, you guys just didn't want to pay contractors, or you didn't want to like do it yourself. So the youth did it because we were on fire. We were ready to go.
Yeah. And especially in some of these mega churches, you think these guys are making boatloads of money. See here. Shell says, "Jade, that is rough. Tell them my husband, who was homeschooled with Abeka books all the way through, is now atheist. There is no recipe that's going to result in perfect little Christians." Yeah. And in many ways, honestly, I hate to say it, but it's like the tighter they grip,
yes,
the more that it falls. So I teach my kids, we've got this little thing we go through a whole litany, and it's, I don't know if I can remember it all, but we go through a bunch of things where we say, stay strong, protect your mind. You can always say no to the Bible bullets, from the reference to the Matrix. You can always say no to the Bible bullets. And when our loved ones escape Christianity, we'll have the biggest party ever. But while we're waiting, remember, the more they teach us the Bible, the less we believe. And because, you know, and we go on through for a few more things, but it's like, it is true. Like, the more they teach us the Bible, the less we believe.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't. And I think especially in this day and age, it just, modern society with the internet and all that, it's helping everything look so foolish.
Yes.
It just looks more ancient and archaic and tribal than ever. Jade says, "I was Abeka homeschooled too, and that's the curriculum I was using too." Yikes. Yeah, me too. Abeka makes atheists.
Yep.
I guess so. Let's see here. I didn't, I don't think I deconverted early enough to connect with Abeka, but yeah, I mean, it's all part of the whole package. Shell says, "I was just being silly, but that's wild. It's almost like the more that you wrestle with stuff and think about how illogical it all is, you're more likely to come out an atheist." Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they teach you to be an approved workman, rightly dividing the word of truth. It's like you're supposed to study these things to see if they're so, to be a Berean. Like, okay, if I'm going to study these things to see if they're so, then eventually, if I see that they're not so, what do you do? Well, I'm neither a Berean nor a Christian now. Life on hard mode. Yeah, I like that analogy. Jade says, "Yeah, and even though the things they teach are so insidious, it has created some really great conversations between me and my kids this year as we finish out. I'm a baby atheist." Jade, we're so glad you're here. Baby atheists are welcome.
Baby atheist is too good. That's funny.
Yeah, sounds like a good title for a movie someday.
Yeah.
Or you know what? That's your new YouTube handle. Start a YouTube channel. Honestly, I'm kind of worried if I don't teach my kids about how it's baloney, someone later down the line will be able to ensnare them with it. We live in a very Baptist area. Yeah, Baptists are absolute vipers. Absolutely. That's my background.
So good at outreach.
Yeah, that's my background.
Yeah.
Jade, being a baby atheist is rough. The loss of community, family, worldview that sometimes happens. Please know that this community is here for you and we are rooting for you. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Shell, I always refer to many views when discussing with my kids. Then it always segues into a conversation about dragons and mermaids. I like that. Jay, thank you. That's why I'm glad I found this channel. Thank you, Jay. We're so glad you're here. Janine, my kids love mythology, so looping Christianity into that genre is a great idea. Absolutely. J.R. Becker's Annabelle and Aiden books are great for atheist kids to take a look at how religion came to be and existential stuff. Yeah, in fact, I think I won't go get it, but I think I've got that copy of that on my shelf. Some people believe in mermaids and fairies. I don't, but I've never seen them, but people are entitled to imagine and believe what they're drawn to. Yeah, absolutely. And he made a book based on Carl Sagan's There's a Dragon in My Garage argument. Okay, nice. Shell says, my daughter loves fairies too. I think that's a far more beautiful belief. Like it's like a decentralized, feminine, and not all encompassing benevolent belief, I guess. I think that's why Christianity tries so hard to put down fairies. How could there be other agents for good, and witches too? How dare women have a sense of self-sufficiency? They tie witches, fairies, goddesses all to demonic, scary, deprived beliefs. It's a repression of the feminine. I don't believe in anything. I'm an ontological naturalist, but I think the views of self-sufficiency and women empowerment are great. Yeah, literally. Hey, Tim, I felt that same guilt if I was not reading my Bible enough or listening to enough sermons. By the way, I don't know how many comments I've got left. Looks like there's a lot more than I thought. I want to try to read through this quickly. I may skip some of them just for the sake of time. We're almost at 2 hours, and I don't want to end up keeping you too long. But I appreciate your. Is it okay if I read a few more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see here. I love the realization that you're allowed to have boundaries, have feelings, and express them. Feelings aren't right or wrong; they just are.
Yeah, we call them energy in motion. So there's a reason they're there, and they always have good information for us, even if they're uncomfortable, and they're worth taking the moment with them. And frankly, it will not be good for you if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, we end up burying so much.
Yeah.
Love Gabor Mate. Anger is your justice button being pushed, and it gives you energy to deal with that. Love that language. Shell says, yes, regulation, strategies, we never learned them. We had to interpret whatever our body was doing as a result of where we were at spiritually damaging.
Yeah.
Where we're at spiritually and damaging. Yeah.
That was like the craziest part about that is we were trained to think anytime your nervous system was actually telling you, like your intuition was saying, this is dangerous for me, that was a distraction from God. And we were trained that anytime we were in dysregulation, something was deeply uncomfortable, you could tell your system is shutting down, that was like, oh, because God wants you to go there. He always pushes you outside of your comfort zone. That's the only place you grow. Yes. And the funny thing is nervous system science shows us that you cannot grow when you don't feel safe. Your nervous system puts all of its energy on homeostasis and making sure everything stays the same. And the only way to get into a state of growth is, crazy enough, to be comfortable, to be resting, to be fed. Like that's where you actually can grow biologically. So it's hilariously opposite of our biology, what we're taught in the church.
I love that. It's great insight. So what you're telling me is I need to drink more coffee because that's my comfort zone. I felt like a little kid learning regulation tools from my therapist. Yeah.
Running they're 100%. So simple. Running is, but they're so simple usually that it's weird. You're like, are you sure this is working? Like even like this, there's so many different things you can do. One of them is literally just touching your lips very, very slowly and imagining being the finger that's touching and then imagine being the lips. And like feel that, and just that 90 seconds, and then take a deep breath. That puts you into your body and into your space. It's so simple. It's like, how does this even work? But it does.
One of the things I've been doing a lot at night is humming. Just humming for 5 or 10 minutes. It makes such a difference. And have you ever seen the app? I forget what it's called, but have you seen the app that shines flashing lights at you?
No, that's interesting.
It's amazing, but you're tempted. You're like thinking, I'm going to use my phone to heal, and I'm going to look at the screen, but you don't. You start it, and then you turn it upside down, and you stare at the light, and you literally you close your eyes, and you have headphones on, and it puts very soft music on, but it flashes these lights, and they say it's as close as you can get to a trip without any chemicals, but it's interesting. Wow. But yeah, just all these things, getting in touch with your body is so important. It's amazing how much of us we're deprived.
Yeah.
Janine says they're like that sun worship. Meanwhile, the sun is actually real and proven to be necessary for health.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So many things like that.
And let's see here. If it feels good, therefore it's a sin. Yeah. At least the sun is real. The cult church I was in taught anything could be an idol and actually discouraged exercise.
Totally. Totally. Like literally, oh, the people who are going to the gym so much, they're just distracted from the real things of God. Come to find out, like I got so well, so well and healthy when I started going to the gym. And going to the gym is actually it's good for your nervous system. It's also good for your emotions. Like it's crazy how good working out is for you. It is the most effective regulation strategy you can have. But it does matter how you go into it. If you go, like some people go into it because they hate something about themselves and they want to change something about themselves, that's not going to be very regulating for you. That's going to feed into other systems and other mindsets. So you really have to
Mm.
find your positive why, which for me was mental health. And I want to be strong for my kids. And I didn't care about anything else. And then I had all these other amazing physical benefits I didn't know were going to happen, but I couldn't go in it. Like initially I tried several times to start with like, oh, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to look better, but I just hated myself. So that wasn't good. So
Mm.
going with a good mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I found the name of that app, if anyone wants to look it up, that says the flashlight. It's called Luminate. Luminate. Shell says, Jade, that unlocks the memory. People in my church basically boycotted this show, American Idol. Yeah. Oh, we boycotted mine, everything. We boycotted anything that was, boycotted Teletubbies and,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Teletubbies. There's a lot of kids shows.
We're going to need some dance video stat. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you want to do what that would be like, if you wanted to just be depressed or something, but I definitely, I think we all need to dance. I mean, it's not just about the exercise. It really is like about learning to just love your body. And in
Yes.
some ways, it'd be nice to think about other people, like dancing in front of other people. But in some ways, it's like you got to start somewhere, and doing it alone
Yeah.
is sometimes we're a little too self-conscious. But if you do that and nothing else, is better than nothing.
Well, and
Because
we can get sorry, go ahead.
okay,
We can get stuck in our trauma loops and dealing with PTSD and stuff up here, but there's a lot of times where talking about it or thinking about it isn't going to make it better. And something like going and dancing and moving it, it actually does move it through your body. And then you'll have more effective times when you do talk and think about it. So that stuff is integral. And again, it's so funny. It's so human. It's so like fun and easy. And we don't do it because, oh, there's more important things to do or whatever.
yeah,
There's
and
not.
certainly,
There's actually not more important things to be doing, actually. Like dancing is one of the most important things you could be doing with your time.
yeah,
I stand by
absolutely.
that.
Preach it, preach it. And see, we do dance parties too, where I make the kids just jump around with me when there's a problem, and before you know it, we're all smiling. Yeah, that's a
Yes. We do
great way
that.
to do
We
it.
irritate the neighbors.
You can't love yourself because you don't know yourself. I love that. I've been exploring what I really think and feel through unstructured poetry. Absolutely, that's awesome. Yeah, I love free verse stream of consciousness poetry. It's changed my life. Yeah, I was just watching The Boys, and one character said when the Bible was written, life expectancy was 30. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Allison, true religion hijacks that natural, sometimes healthy shame that helps us keep community. I guess shame is important in so many more collectivist cultures. We do need community to be healthy.
Mhm.
Their guide to being safe during dating is just don't do it. LOL,
Yeah.
just get married. Court for a short period when family's involved, then get married before temptation can set in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The book I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Yep.
Oh, barf.
Jade, thankfully he deconstructed it. I'm sure you know that already with Joshua Harris.
Yeah, he just followed me recently. I was like,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to
Awesome.
have him on the channel sometime, but
Yeah.
we'll see. But yeah, it's great that it's like it's a lot of damage that was done, but you know what? He's appears to be trying to make it right and make
Oh,
it
yeah.
better. So it's
He's been touring with Hillary McBride,
okay.
PhD. She wrote Holy Hurt. She's really incredible. So I think that's probably amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So here are a few more comments. Laura says, when I try something and it turns out bad, I feel embarrassed, but then I reframe it as I satisfy my curiosity about that particular thing.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that.
Awesome. Awesome. Yep. 100% Shell. I married my first and only boyfriend at the ripe age of 20. We were also dating long distance nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah.
was 19 and I didn't even mention this part of the story. We had grown adults telling us that we had prophecies to get married at like 15. They were telling us that we were meant to be in whatever. So
Mm.
don't ever tell kids that. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the same way. I mean, I literally, mine was through eHarmony, and I just, we literally booked the church for the wedding before we met. We were like, this is a God thing. Literally, we had
Yeah.
booked the church before
Yeah.
we ever met in person. Just, you just think God's in this.
Right.
Yeah, such a great reframe. Well, same exact situation with me and my husband. I really got lucky, and he was actually decent. We constructed
Hey.
together and are now happy atheists. That's awesome.
Oh.
Kevin says, infantilizes is a perfect description. Yeah.
Mhm.
Shell says, we met at a Christian summer camp. His pastor kind of matched us essentially, not like formally, but he tried to push us together. And so we wound up dating. Then we got engaged during college. We were going to wait till we got married until after college, but his pastor sat us down and told us that long engagements only lead to temptation. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And they lead to you actually thinking about the person and seeing them in worse states and wondering, is this really who I want to be with the rest of my life? Ah!
It is. You got to scream.
Yeah.
Get married and have babies. That was the blueprint. Yep. Lots of soldiers for Jesus.
Yeah.
You also don't obsess so much when it's normal. Yeah, exactly. The snake onesie is insane.
It is really insane.
Sorry. It's probably from the lyrics. I'm sorry, Tim. I won't be offended if you cut it out or so you get the money. No, I won't cut it out. I'm so glad you sang that song. That was good. Zombies is a very good way to put it. So let's see here. HVAC, thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate your support. Friends on TikTok, love you. Love all you both do. Both of your channels have helped me process, heal, and be validated. Also, fuck Calvinism. Yes.
Love it. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to cuss on here. I should have asked you because I have a sailor's mouth, but
Yes, please. Yeah, well, we've got at least 5 or 10 minutes left, so please, you can make up for it.
Get them all out really quick.
Absolutely. Revolutionary says a godly woman does exist. Women love the world. I'm not sure what they're trying to say there.
I don't know.
I think I'm just going to block that. Shell says Christianity conditions us to overshare. Yeah, it really does. And to really to justify everything. It's amazing. It's
Right.
so much part of their filter.
Yep.
You better have a reason for everything you do. I have heard that too. My therapist also told me that I don't need to share anything I don't want to, which was so helpful. Fast on removing those trolls. Sometimes, yeah, I try to, but I can't always tell. Some people aren't trolls like where they're just like coming on and saying Christianity is true. They're just like talking about stuff and like, what does that mean? So I
Yeah.
can't tell. I need time to figure out what they're doing, but I think sometimes some people just jump on live streams to just be different. I like hopscotch learning songs for kids. The Boundary song was good for my kids, but also for me as an adult coming out of Christianity. Yeah, the hopscotch YouTube channel is interesting. They've got
That's
some great
awesome.
stuff about boundaries. This is an interesting discussion as it's God where I found safety. People are the ones that cross boundaries and abused. At love's very center is patience and kindness and not for sharing. It's God where you found safety. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm not sure if that's a troll or not. See here. I stopped going to church because, for one, there is nowhere in Scripture that says to go to church. People under the influence of religion are the ones that expect that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to keep going past that one. I'm not sure, but safety in God is not real. The God of the Old Testament says, that he's going to literally take his own children, his own people, and if they disobey him, he will lift up their skirts and expose their nakedness to their enemies. He sends snakes to bite his own children. He sends a flood to drown his own children. If you're finding safety in God, that's part of what we're talking about. That's the opposite of reality. It is very, very sick. It's psychopathic. Shell says growth happens when needs are met. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. Boycotting Teletubbies. Yeah. See here. Cold Iron Gaming, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. And I think we're caught up enough. I'm going to wrap up the comments there. If anyone does have any comments, we're over what I was expecting. So if any comments come in, we'll just read the ones that are very specific to the topic. But I appreciate so much you all being a part of the community and just sharing your thoughts. And again, thank you so much for the super chat as well. But Allison, could I ask you to take just a few minutes here to number one, just get the cursing going. But number two, could you please also, if you want to add in some "that's what she said" jokes or anything you want to get, crass, you do whatever, you take it wherever you want to. But could you tell us about your platform? Number one, I want to remind everybody, when we started this interview, she had 18 subscribers on YouTube. Please pump that up to over 100 like immediately.
Yeah.
And please subscribe. But also, you do a lot of work on Instagram. Could you tell us, what is your heart for how you help people? And you're also, by the way, you're open to people reaching out to you to meet one-on-one. All these links beneath the video. But what is your heart for your platform? How is it going? Are you feeling like you're making a difference with what you've been doing so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Tim. So, I want people to be able to critically think. I want them to feel safe and to start to find safety and signal safety to their bodies in their deconstruction process. And so, the main people that I tend to help. Sometimes on my channel there's like humor, there's other things we talk about. We talk about some of these shared experiences that we've had that are just crazy. They're not found anywhere else in society. And so it's nice to come together and have the community. And that's on social media. And then I talk about little different topics. Just it's everything. It's purity culture, it's patriarchy, it's religion, it's the abuse, the spiritual abuse, the spiritual bypassing, the religious trauma, all of these things. And ultimately, what I do that's different than some other deconstruction coaches is I will talk about your beliefs with you, but I'm never going to guide anybody. I don't want to ever be the person who is like your new guru or anything. So I always say, like, my beliefs don't matter. I mean, some of them do, but for the most part, my core belief is that everyone has inherently everything they need within them, and sometimes they just need a mirror. Sometimes they just need a tool or whatever, and that's what I offer. And so I point people back to themselves so they can start to trust themselves again. And this is the crazy thing. I work with people who have been deconstructed for a long time, most of the time. I mean, it depends. I'll work with anybody at any point. But it's like almost impossible to reach people who are still in church right now. But people, even who have been deconstructed for years, are still feeling that like guilt and the hypervigilance and like, I don't even believe in God anymore. And I still feel like I'm being punished. And so we work on that. So you can actually like feel the rest, the peace that you're talking that you need to like, so you can actually enjoy your life, and your life improves in the way that it should after you leave behind those really traumatic, nasty beliefs. And so I do that with one-on-one clients. I have some other things. I'm always cooking up something new. Eventually I'll be doing a group thing to have that community aspect, because I think that's so important. But like right now, my clients are everywhere in the spectrum. I will work with anybody where they're going. I don't care if you're going atheist, agnostic, if you even still keep your Christian beliefs. I'll work with you depending on where you came from, because that's the commonality. And I love it. And I'm also very affirming. I would say right now, probably 80% of my clients are LGBTQIA. And I might not be like specialized in that, but I have so much respect for it. And I am trained to hold the space for whatever you're bringing. And I really try to check
Mm.
like my biases at the door, because it isn't any part of the discussion, any part of where you're ending up. And it really has nothing to do with me. I want you to feel satisfied and good with your life. So the easiest way, if you want to work with me, I mean, we'll definitely reach out on social media. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Most active on Instagram probably right now, but also pretty active on TikTok. Send me a message, send me a DM, or there's going to be a link here where you can book a fit and alignment call with me, and we'll talk about like what you want and see if it's a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, I'm going to tell you, like, maybe you need therapy or maybe you need this or whatever, because I want it to be supportive. Like I'm here to help people, not to just do whatever I want to do. Like I'm never going to do the Christianity claim, oh, everything I do works for everybody. It might. I think a lot of nervous system stuff works for most people for most things. And I'm still going to be honest about what I think. So I love
Mm.
hearing your stories, and please reach out. Come talk to me, come DM me. I love talking to people.
That is so awesome. Just to maybe bring it to a close, could you wrap us up maybe with a personal word and a word of advice, a personal word about how are you doing at this point personally with your healing? Where do you
Yeah.
feel you're at in the journey? Where do you feel like, you're finding the insights that are opening new doors that are taking you to levels of healing that maybe you thought you'd be at by now or didn't even know were there, but you're getting to it. Like, what is your healing journey like? And then could you also just give maybe one quick word of advice um, for someone that's going through the darkest part of it, where they're just like, man, oh man, I can't go back, I can't go forward, I'm just stuck. Obviously, like you're saying, maybe consider a therapist of some kind. But besides that, is there anything you would add to that in terms of a word of advice for the person that's just in the, the what do you call it, the dark night of the soul with all this?
Yeah, yeah. So kind of like I was saying before, like right now, my big thing I'm focused on is boundaries is huge, but also just like running experiments and eschewing things like guilt and shame and resting. And anytime I notice like a little shame comes up or something, I really just get on it immediately. And I do one of two things. I either go, where is it coming from? And then I chase it down, and then I say that's illogical. So yeah. Or sometimes I don't even do that because that's still giving it way too much attention. And so then I'll just be like, time to go straighten the body. What am I feeling? And then I don't even label it. I just go like, what am I feeling? Okay, what does my body want right now? Okay, it wants to move like this. Okay, I actually really am hungry. I'm going to go get some food. And I just flow with it right now more. And I'm currently going through like my second, not currently, but kind of another like community loss, all kinds of crazy stuff. Since I went online, people are so mad at me. I've been reached out to from all over the world, people who hate what I'm doing, who used to know me and just can't believe it. And so I'm dealing with that on a new public level that hasn't happened in the past. And so that's just, I don't know, it's easier. It just gets easier and easier. Like I've already done this before. And so that might be part of my encouragement is I'm telling you, I know it's hard right now, but once you get to the other side, like there is no way it's not going to be better. Like I just promise you, it will be better in some way. It is so worth the pain of confronting your identity, of confronting the worldview, of confronting the things that happen to you and stuff. Like it just keeps getting better. Like life just keeps being more beautiful on the other side. So there's that. And then number two, just don't listen to anyone. That's my thing. Do not listen to anyone. If anybody tries to tell you anything that is stopping you and making you hesitate on something that you really feel is a direction you want to go, literally do not listen to them. Just be serious about it because you don't need to. You don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them any of your actions. You do not owe them your labor. You do not owe them your emotional state. You don't owe them being healthy and well and perfect and looking good all the time. You can be as messy and whatever and do whatever you want. You don't owe them behavior that worked perfectly the first time. Like do the experiments, figure out what happened, become a scientist in your own life. Like that's my advice.
I love it. I love it. Well, if I could just mention, I'm going to read a comment here and then comment on it. Laura says, Allison has a lot of wisdom early in life. I just want to say, you know, this is a compliment. You sound like what I would consider an old soul. And I definitely appreciate it. You definitely, I think you're probably like me. We were told, you know, you're so spiritual, you're so mature for your age and all this.
Yeah.
But there's a depth where when you go through the dark valleys of your life and you say, I am going to get through this. I am going to figure out, you know, my mind says your life's over, your life's coming to a dark place. I'm so depressed. And something in you is a fighter and says, I will always leave the darkness for the light. Always. I will find a way. And you develop, it's a lonely path and you get okay with loneliness, but you eventually get stronger in and of yourself as well as building a community. But when you get through that, you find the language. And I just want to say I appreciate this about your channel a lot. This is why I want to encourage people to go follow you, because I think one of the biggest challenges of my life, and I think it's always going to be a struggle, no matter how eloquent I may get to in some level. I think that there are ways in which we are trying to say things like our worldview and our personhood, our self is trying desperately to say things, and we just simply don't have the words for it.
Yes.
And I love how people like you and many other amazing people come on this channel. And I think what I appreciate so much about you all is you give us the words, you help us attach our feelings to specific concepts enough to help us to get forward. And it feels like in some ways, I'm sure for a lot of us, you're putting words in our mouth in a good sense, like, yes, that's what I'm trying to say, but I couldn't say it.
Yeah.
But now we can say it. And that's so empowering. And I think for a lot of us, like even just the words and concepts around autonomy and respect and boundaries, once you get it, you're like, of course it's so obvious, but until you get there, you don't have the tools. So I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing. You're doing great work. And again, everyone, please subscribe. Do you have any final words before we wrap up today?
No, this was such a pleasure, Tim, though. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was a great
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. I still didn't even get a curse word. My goodness.
I know. We'll just have to do, honestly, we should just do another one. I can talk forever and then I'll be full blown.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you so much. I definitely want to have you back on the channel, both for a one-on-one topic as well as maybe a roundtable with some other people. But
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you so much. Really appreciate your time today. And everyone, I'll just wrap up by saying we've been speaking with Allison Rose. Please like and subscribe to everything. Reach out to her one-on-one if you want that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Allison. Great to hear your story, and we'll do it again sometime.
Awesome.
And everyone in the community, thanks again for letting us be a part of your lives and for being a part of ours. Have a great day.